A father's heart shatters as he gazes at his daughter's lifeless body. The crushing weight of guilt consumes him for being his daughter's own killer. Amidst the pouring rain, he kneels before the child he failed to protect. This nightmare has repeated through 99 horrific cycles of death and despair. Silence fills the forest as he mourns over her cold, broken form once more. A final glimmer of hope remains because he has only one chance left. With the number 1 glowing above him, he prepares for his last desperate gamble. His eyes ignite with blue flames as he vows to never fail her again. Suddenly, he awakens in the past, gasping for air as reality shifts around him. The television broadcasts the very catastrophe that started this endless cycle of blood. The apocalypse descended without warning, turning the entire world into a blood-soaked graveyard. Before the chaos, he sat in the shadows, watched by the daughter he loved. They were forced to become survivors in a land where mercy had long died. But the cruelty of this new reality eventually claimed her innocent life once again. He wailed in agony, cradling her cold body as his heart shattered into pieces. Driven to madness by the endless cycle of loss, he chose a final, permanent exit. Yet even death refused to take him as the thread of fate suddenly snapped. A divine entity appeared from the light, offering a deal signed in desperate blood. He opened his eyes to a familiar nightmare, trembling with the weight of regression. Now he awakens once again, determined to finally change their tragic destiny forever. He jolts awake in a cold sweat, realizing the nightmare has truly reset. The weight of 99 failures stares back at him through his own terrified eyes. A glowing mark of regression haunts his reflection, confirming the final gamble has begun. Desperation surges through his veins as he prepares to fight fate one last time. He pounds on the door, screaming her name with a voice fueled by agony. Suddenly, the one person he watched die 100 times stands there completely unharmed. He clings to her shoulders, desperately checking if this miracle is actually real. His grip is unbreakable, terrified that she might vanish if he lets go. There is no time for explanations as he drags her into the cold night. They vanish into the shadows, beginning a frantic race against an inevitable, bloody end. He screams a final warning as the crushing weight of failure looms over them. A bloodthirsty predator strikes from the shadows, claiming his 99th life in an instant. He gasps for air, jolting awake in a room he has seen 100 times. A ghostly blue light flickers in his eyes, signaling the start of another loop. The shock paralyzes him when he realizes the number above his head has dropped. Terror sets in as the grim reality of his limited chances begins to sink in. He sits in the silence, realizing that every number represents a final, precious chance. His hands tremble with fury, tightening into fists as he prepares for the impossible. Only 98 lives remain to save his daughter from a cycle of endless death. He will shatter every monster in his path until the cycle of tragedy finally breaks. He stood over the carnage, willing to do anything to save his daughter. With only 71 lives left, he had completely abandoned his humanity. But no matter how hard he fought, the darkness always claimed her soul. Every failure meant a gruesome end as the monsters tore him apart again. He gripped his blade tight, knowing death was the only way to restart. With 52 chances remaining, he realized that simply trying was not enough. He transformed into a whirlwind of violence, striking with a new, desperate ferocity. By the 13th life, he was no longer a man, but a killing machine. He crushed every obstacle in his path, painting the wasteland with monster blood. Standing among the ruins, he prepared to face his few remaining chances. He swings his spiked bat with a desperation born from 100 failures. Standing amidst the carnage, he realizes that raw strength will never be enough. Even with 1,000 chances, the weight of his sins feels impossible to carry. Behind him, the one person he failed to protect returns as a nightmare. Her voice echoes in his mind, begging for a salvation he cannot provide. The monster, wearing his daughter's face, lunges forward to end his suffering. He pulls her into a final, heartbreaking embrace as the world fades away. Realizing his weakness only leads to her death, he pulls the trigger again. Suddenly, his eyes snap open as the cold reality of another loop begins. He lies in the dark, tears falling for a daughter he must save again. He sits in the crushing silence of a room filled with nothing but failure. A single tear escapes as the weight of 99 deaths breaks his spirit. Across the hall, the daughter he watched die awakens in this new timeline. She walks toward him, completely unaware of the horrors he has already endured. He frantically gathers his gear, preparing for the nightmare that is about to begin. She stops in her tracks, terrified by the haunted look in her father's eyes. He stares at her like a ghost, unable to believe she is finally standing there. His trembling hand reaches out, desperate to confirm this is not another hallucination. He pulls her into a desperate embrace, vowing that this time will be different. In this final loop, he will become a monster to keep her alive forever. He whispers a solemn vow that echoes through the fabric of time itself. No matter how many billions of deaths it takes, he will save her. Every failed timeline has led to this single, desperate moment of physical contact. He pleads with her to trust the man who has seen her die repeatedly. She looks at him with confusion, unaware of the infinite tragedies he endured. In a past life, he carried her broken body through the ruins of Daejeon. It took 99 agonizing attempts to finally locate a safe haven for them. This fortress is guarded by elite soldiers who represent the last bastion of order. Within these walls, medical experts fight to keep the few remaining survivors alive. For the first time in centuries, he has found a place to call home. An old man withered away in a world that stole everything from him. For 40 years, he stood guard over the grave of his only daughter. This was his final gamble to find the one place death couldn't reach. With the sanctuary confirmed, his decades of agonizing research were finally complete. He finally discovered the destination that would break their infinite cycle of tragedy. To save her, he would have to die one last time. A single gunshot echoes as he triggers his final regression into the past. He opens his eyes back in the body of a man with everything to lose. Standing before him is the daughter he hasn't seen alive in 40 years. Now the real mission begins, and this time he will not let her die. He held her cold body, failing just steps away from the final sanctuary. Every drop of rain mocked the one fatal mistake that ended her life. 40 years of agonizing research and thousands of loops led to this moment. His trembling hand gripped the handle, ready to defy fate once and for all. This time he would be perfect, leaving absolutely no room for another tragedy. But as the door swung open, the air turned cold with a sudden realization. An endless sea of the undead blocked the path he thought was clear. A single variable had emerged, something his decades of planning never foresaw. Tens of thousands of rehearsals couldn't prepare him for this impossible nightmare. In the face of certain death, the master of regression finally froze in terror. He spent 99 lives perfecting every movement to save his only daughter from death. But the monsters he faced were nothing compared to the truth waiting behind that door. One absolute rule had governed every single loop he had ever endured until now. He thought he was surrounded by monsters, but his eyes were finally deceiving him. The nightmare shifted when a familiar figure lunged at him from the blood-red shadows. Her desperate scream for her father shattered his heart, proving she was still alive. He lunged forward, grabbing her before the real hunger could claim its prize. She collapsed onto the floor, trembling from an escape that defied every previous loop. With a heavy thud, he sealed the door against the tide of mindless, screaming hunger. Now he stared at the girl who should be dead, realizing fate has finally broken. She watches through the narrow crack, her eyes wide with a paralyzing, newfound terror. Collapsing to the cold floor, she let out a scream that echoed through the room. Desperation took hold as she begged her father to explain his sudden, reckless actions. Her fists pounded against the unyielding wood, pleading for him to open the door. Outside, a tide of rotting flesh surged forward, burying him beneath a sea of teeth. The father roared in agony as the undead swarm finally began to tear him apart. His vision blurred with blood, yet a cold, supernatural resolve flickered within his gaze. He remembered her face, knowing the pain of losing a child far too well. After 99 deaths, the sensation of being devoured had become a familiar, bitter nightmare. He would endure any hell just to protect the memory of her innocent, smiling face. He remembers the warmth of a life before the world fell into ruin. Every smile from his daughter was a treasure worth more than his own soul. Now, a cold pane of glass is all that separates her from certain death. As the undead tear at his flesh, a terrifying blue light flickers in his eyes. He wonders if his eternal struggle finally ends in this dark and rotting place. A surge of raw, supernatural power erupts as he anchors his feet to the ground. Even under the crushing weight of 100 monsters, he will not be moved. He would die 1,000 deaths just to ensure her survival one more time. As long as his daughter still breathes, he refuses to let the darkness win. He screams against the heavens, refusing to let this cycle of tragedy repeat again. He stands alone amidst a mountain of corpses, the only survivor in this hell. Moving into the dark streets, a lone predator lunges from the shadows for flesh. But this monster has no idea it just challenged a god in human skin. With a single, blinding motion, he strikes before the creature can even blink. He becomes a whirlwind of blue lightning, tearing through the undead like wet paper. Even when their rotten teeth sink into his shoulder, he doesn't flinch or scream. His eyes ignite with a terrifying power that signals the end for everything nearby. He seizes the beast by its throat, preparing to deliver a final, crushing blow. A devastating kick sends the remaining monsters flying into the dark, ruined city. Under the pale moonlight, he ascends, a vengeful ghost hunting in the night sky. He crushes the monster's skull, with a force that defies all human limits. Surrounded by a sea of rot, he stands as an unbreakable wall of blue. His eyes burn with a terrifying light that marks the end of this nightmare. The mindless horde screams in agony as the true predator finally awakens before them. After 99 tragic failures, the girl waits in the dark for her final end. But a blinding light ruptures the silence as the heavy door finally swings open. Tears stream down her face as she realizes the loop has finally been broken. Her father stands there, a blood-soaked titan who climbed back from the grave. Though his body is broken and battered, his resolve has never been more lethal. He smiles through the gore, a resurrected god ready to protect his daughter forever. 7 days into the outbreak, Seoul has transformed into a silent graveyard of souls. A local mart has been converted into a fortress against the growing undead horde. A hostile soldier demands identification as two figures approach the market's heavy gates. Surrounded by death, the man stands perfectly still amidst the ruins of the city. The guard threatens to open fire if the silent stranger doesn't speak immediately. A cold realization hits the sentry as he sees the man's unsettlingly calm expression. They mock his fashion choices, completely blind to the monster standing before them. A high-ranking captain known as the Black Widow steps into the light. She orders the survivors to vanish, refusing to offer them any shelter tonight. A deadly standoff begins as two powerful forces refuse to back down. The cold commander stares back, her suspicion growing with every passing second. He begs for mercy, claiming his daughter won't survive another week of this hell. Desperation clouds his eyes as he offers to trade everything just for her safety. Tension reaches a breaking point as the Black Widow's icy composure finally cracks. The sentry spits in disgust, mocking the man for thinking emotions matter anymore. They laugh at his pathetic plea, convinced their captain has a heart of stone. But the ruthless warrior is suddenly overcome with tears she can no longer hide. Shaking with suppressed emotion, she barks the order to let the strangers inside. She masks her weakness with excuses, demanding they earn their keep through hard labor. The guards stand frozen in shock as the impossible gamble actually pays off. The man stares ahead, knowing exactly who leads this fortress. He recognizes the ruthless captain, realizing she hasn't changed a bit. This retired soldier once rallied survivors to defend this very supermarket. Though cold as a serpent, she remains vulnerable to tales of sacrifice. Suddenly, his daughter erupts in anger, questioning his reckless and dangerous plan. He desperately tries to explain as their fragile alliance begins to crumble. As they are led inside, the girl's health takes a sudden, violent turn. The sentry mocks her weakness, unaware of the trauma breaking her mind. He grips her hand tightly, fearing her mental state is finally collapsing. Everything traces back to the horrific tragedy that shattered them 1 week ago. He stares at his hand, wondering if he has finally become a mindless monster. The supermarket ahead represents their only chance at survival in this rotting world. He brings his daughter to the only fortress still guarded by living soldiers. But the sight of the neighboring ruins fills him with a sudden, chilling dread. Something has changed in this timeline, as a massive building lies in total ruin. A hostile sentry begins to recount the bloodbath that occurred just 3 days ago. Their captain fought like a demon, holding back the tide with sheer military precision. Thousands of ravenous undead were lured into a trap they could never escape. A massive detonation leveled the structure, crushing the entire horde under tons of concrete. Now the monsters are buried alive, left to rot in the dark forever. The sentry's mocking laughter is cut short by a sudden, heavy presence. The father's eyes narrow as his survival instincts scream a desperate warning. Behind the arrogant soldier, a mountain of rotting flesh rises from the shadows. Terror finally replaces his smug grin as the true predator reveals itself. But before the beast can strike, a blue flash of pure violence descends. Moving faster than the human eye, the captain leaps into the fray. With one devastating blow, she crushes the titan into the cold concrete. Panic spreads through the ranks as more horrors emerge from the darkness. She bellows a command to fire while shielding the man and his daughter. A storm of lead erupts as the final stand for humanity begins. Bullets rain down on the titan, yet lead barely scratches its rotting hide. A deafening roar of agony echoes as the beast enters a total blood frenzy. Death looms large as a massive fist targets a sentry paralyzed by terror. Suddenly, the captain intercepts the strike, her strength defying every law of nature. She drags the soldier up, screaming that he must move now or die. Realizing this horror is a mutated nightmare, she focuses on the coming slaughter. The survivors sprint through the dark, racing toward the only hope they have. Father's eyes ignite with blue light as his survival instincts finally take control. With a single explosive blow, he clears a path through the encroaching dead. The massive barricade stands as the final line of defense against the apocalypse. Chahayeri calculates her next move, desperately searching for any sign of a weakness. Her heart sinks when she discovers a massive crowd still trapped on the floor. Among the terrified civilians, a young girl stands frozen in the middle of chaos. Frustration boils over as the captain slams her boot down against the cold pavement. She screams for the survivors to retreat, while she prepares to face the nightmare. Spotting the girl alone, she demands to know where her father has gone. The captain lashes out, accusing the man of abandoning his child to the slaughter. The girl silently points toward the distance, revealing where her protector truly went. A deafening impact shatters the silence, signaling the arrival of a new, greater terror. Her sharp blue eyes widen in pure shock as the true horror finally appears. The man unleashes a strike fueled by 99 lifetimes of pure, unadulterated desperation. A singular, bone-shattering impact obliterates the beast that once haunted his every waking nightmare. With bloodied hands raised high, he prepares to end this cycle of endless suffering. The military elite stand paralyzed as a blinding light consumes the entire battlefield. He shields his daughter's eyes from the brutal violence he was forced to commit. The Titan lies defeated, its massive, gore-stained hand finally going cold on the pavement. Gasping for air, he stands amidst the wreckage of his own violent victory. The captain watches in silence, her heart heavy with the weight of his apology. He confesses to his daughter that he failed to keep his most sacred promise. A bittersweet smile fades as he admits he was too terrified of losing her. Hyeri demands to know the identity of the monster-slaying stranger standing before her. Drenched in the blood of his enemies, the mysterious warrior remains hauntingly calm. He finally reveals his name is Ryu Minseok, a man who shouldn't exist. Dami watches in silent horror, praying her father keeps his true identity hidden. She desperately begs him to stop before his secrets put them both in danger. With a cold adjustment of his glasses, he claims to be a zombie expert. The air grows thick with tension as the military elite face this impossible survivor. The captain narrows her eyes, questioning how a civilian could know so much. Standing over the fallen Titan, he explains his survival comes from ruthless, cold analysis. A terrifyingly polite smile masks the godlike power he is currently hiding from them. Hyra's smile masks a sudden, dangerous realization about the mysterious man before her. Without warning, she lunges forward, pressing a blade against his throat with lethal intent. Dami screams in terror as her father coldly commands her to remain silent. The captain stares at the mangled beast he slaughtered, using nothing but raw strength. She notices his eyes glowing with a crimson light that shouldn't be possible. Their faces inches apart. She demands to know if he is even human anymore. Her suspicion boils over into rage as she accuses him of playing a game. Standing amidst the carnage, the elite soldier holds the monster expert at her mercy. Yet, despite the knife at his neck, he remains disturbingly calm and unfazed. He simply lies, claiming the military's bullets did all the heavy lifting for him. The Eater is a nightmare born from the fusion of two high-strength zombies. He explains that even this juggernaut had a fatal weakness in its jaw. A blunt strike with enough force would shatter its legendary defense instantly. She questions the strange light in his eyes while he claims a genetic condition. Feeling exposed, he admits that such intense scrutiny makes him feel deeply uncomfortable. He challenges her directly to decide if he still resembles a mindless monster. The elite captain hesitates, her military instincts clashing with the man's eerie composure. Her intuition screams that he is hiding something dangerous beneath his calm exterior. However, seeing the young girl protect him proves he cannot be a zombie. Standing over the massive corpse, she decides to temporarily grant them her trust. The elite captain finally grants them entry, but her suspicion remains high. She warns the father that her eyes will never leave his side. Turning away, her face twists into a mask of pure, unadulterated coldness. The sight of her slaughtered unit forces her to face a grim reality. When her men rush to assist, they are met with a violent greeting. A bone-shattering kick punishes the soldier for his lack of situational awareness. She screams at them for failing to protect the innocent civilians during chaos. Without that strange man's help, the entire base would have been lost. Her eyes burn with blue light as she promises to kill them herself. Terrified soldiers salute their commander as she marches back into the darkness. A soldier's face twists in a mock salute to the captain he just betrayed. Deep within the Mart Plaza, hundreds of survivors huddle together in a fragile peace. Among the crowd, Dami sits with her father, who seems shaken by recent events. She leans in close, whispering how relieved she is that they weren't caught lying. They know the commander is far too sharp to be fooled by a simple bluff. When Dami questions how he knows so much about her, his expression shifts instantly. Shattered memories of 100 lifetimes reveal his deep history with the legendary warrior. He claims he learned everything from his daughter, even though she has no memory. A bittersweet smile crosses his face as he remembers the lessons from a forgotten loop. Long ago, under a different sky, they shared a warmth that time can never erase. He tells his daughter to stay put while he secures their rations. Dami watches him leave, her curious whispers replaced by a sudden suspicion. He hides his exhaustion behind a smile that has faded countless times. A fragmented memory of a solemn promise suddenly pierces through the present. Long ago, she pleaded with him to hide his evolving, monstrous nature. She knew that revealing his true self would only invite human cruelty. Her desperate demand for secrecy remains his only rule for survival now. Blending in with the soldiers, he acknowledges that her warning was correct. If his godlike identity is exposed, this entire base will turn hostile. A single slip would plunge these desperate people into a state of panic. The weary survivor finally returns to his daughter with a box of precious supplies. He finds her curled on the cold floor, exhausted by their relentless struggle. Gently covering her with a blanket, he tries to provide a single moment's peace. Yet a dark realization begins to cloud his mind as he observes the world. The undead hordes are evolving at a pace he never witnessed in previous lives. Every memory of his 99 past failures is being rendered completely useless now. A terrifying mutation is sweeping through the monsters, turning them into something far worse. He suspects his own existence in this timeline is the catalyst for this nightmare. Outside the walls of their fragile sanctuary, the city belongs to the hungry dead. A monstrous predator watches from the shadows, sensing the powerful soul hidden within. Beneath a bloodless moon, the evolved monsters begin their relentless hunt for his soul. An army of nightmares converges with one goal: erase him and his daughter forever. Their glowing eyes betray a primal fear of the man who shouldn't even exist. To these predators, he is the only variable capable of breaking their perfect cycle. Looking down at the chaos, he realizes the entire horde has finally gathered here. No more searching is needed, since the prey has finally delivered itself to him. The monsters screech in defiance, unaware they are walking into a total slaughter. He must finish this massacre quickly before his sleeping daughter wakes to the horror. Leaping into the abyss, he turns a simple ladder into a weapon of destruction. With his power surging, the regressor prepares to paint the entire forest deep red. The regressor descends like a god, unleashing a strike that shatters the very earth. Twisted abominations swarm from the shadows, but they are merely fodder for his rage. Switching to dual blades, his aura flares as he prepares to carve through the horde. Gravity itself seems to fail as monsters are sent hurtling into a cold, white abyss. No matter how many limbs these nightmares possess, they cannot grasp his blinding speed. With blood-red eyes and absolute focus, he delivers a final, lethal execution. While the forest runs red, the Amart survival base remains a silent, unsuspecting sanctuary. Deep within the cold storage, his daughter sleeps peacefully, shielded from the outside carnage. Her eyes flutter open, unaware of the 99 tragedies her father has already prevented. Stretching in the quiet morning, she has no idea her safety cost a mountain of corpses. Dami wakes to a friendly face, unaware of the carnage occurring outside. A warm meal sits before her, a rare luxury in this dying world. Her protector offers a kind smile, masking the monster he became for her. For a fleeting moment, the horror of 99 deaths feels like a dream. Outside the sanctuary of Amart, the morning sun reveals a gruesome reality. Within the military command center, a frantic report shatters the morning silence. A terrified soldier describes an impossible slaughter that occurred while the base slept. Thousands of undead lie butchered, cleared by a force they cannot comprehend. Captain Hyeri demands answers, unable to believe a single person caused this genocide. An entire army of monsters vanished in hours, leaving behind a terrifying mystery. Captain Hyeri finally connects the dots, realizing a single man changed the entire world. She immediately orders her troops to assemble, sensing the tide of battle has shifted. A desperate plan is set in motion to finally escape their commercial prison. Survivors stare in disbelief at a city once teeming with the rotting undead. Joyous cheers erupt as the nightmare of the apocalypse seemingly vanishes overnight. Dami watches the celebration, sensing the impossible peace is only a fragile illusion. Her father places a heavy helmet on her head with a grim, silent warning. He commands her to never remove it, preparing for a horror yet to come. The girl stands frozen as the military marches toward them with urgent news. Hyeri announces the impossible victory while the true architect hides in plain sight. The survivors cheer for a victory that is nothing more than a fleeting dream. Hyeri breaks the silence, ordering an immediate evacuation of their last fortified base. A single photograph serves as a haunting reminder of the world they once knew. Panic ripples through the crowd as they realize the nightmare is far from over. She explains that a massive military brigade is finally waiting to protect them all. The survivors react with pure rage, terrified of leaving their only safe haven. Hyeri stands firm, claiming she knows exactly who sent the desperate radio message. Their only hope lies with Bluehawk, a warrior of legendary, godlike power. The mob screams in defiance, refusing to walk blindly into a potential death trap. A tense standoff begins as the clock counts down to their final destruction. The crowd's resentment boils over as they challenge the military's authority. A terrified man screams that a woman's leadership will lead to their doom. Hyeri stares back in shock, unable to believe the blatant disrespect. A heavy footfall silences the room as a true monster approaches. The legendary regressor emerges from the shadows with a chilling warning. He ignores the soldiers, focusing his terrifying gaze on the loudmouthed coward. With a single grip, he reminds the man that their sanctuary is a tomb. An aura of pure death manifests, showing the man his inevitable, gruesome fate. The regressor cold-bloodedly explains that hiding is just waiting for the end. Paralyzed by fear, the survivor watches the man who has seen everything walk away. The arrogant survivor laughs at the warning, demanding proof of the coming slaughter. Standing before the restless mob, the regressor prepares to drop a devastating truth. He coldly asks the terrified civilians if they truly believe they can survive alone. The harsh reality finally sinks in as the survivors realize they are dead meat. Panic turns into desperate compliance as they beg to follow the military's lead. A roar of agreement erupts, uniting the fractured crowd under a single purpose. Hyeri watches in utter disbelief as he effortlessly bends the masses to his will. She realizes this mysterious man is far more dangerous than any monster outside. With a chilling smirk, the legendary warrior walks past the stunned captain. He dismisses her silent gratitude, already moving toward a destiny she cannot see. He reflects on the violent history needed to force others into compliance. Now, he offers a desperate alliance to ensure his daughter finally survives. An open palm carries more weight than any threat of immediate death. The legendary warrior places the fate of humanity onto the stunned captain. A final command is given as the desperate escape mission officially begins. Hyeri bellows through the megaphone, promising salvation to the terrified masses. Heavy armored trucks and buses roll out into the desolate, blood-soaked streets. The convoy pushes through the wreckage of a world that has ended. Hidden among the survivors, his daughter waits with a heavy, anxious heart. With the legendary regressor watching, the military vanguard charges toward destiny. The convoy finally reaches the ruins of Uedo as the air grows heavy. Hyeri warns her driver to stay sharp in this ghost-filled territory. She knows this is only the beginning of a suicide mission. Panic flares as she screams for Sergeant Shin to maintain the formation. A lone shadow stands in the wreckage, a herald of the coming nightmare. Suddenly the silence shatters as a literal wall of undead flesh charges forward. The captain barks orders to split the forces and protect the innocent. Thousands of desperate survivors scramble through the narrow blood-stained corridors of the city. Exploiting their sensitivity to sound, the soldiers deploy a frantic, clattering distraction. The gamble pays off as the mindless horde follows the noise into a trap. The captain screams for her driver to maintain speed as the nightmare closes in. Thousands of ravenous corpses flood the streets, hungry for the taste of human flesh. With no other choice, she directs the convoy toward the crumbling remains of the bridge. Desperation takes hold as she gives the signal to jump into the unknown abyss. Metal meets bone in a gruesome symphony of destruction as the front line shatters. The vehicle soars over the gap, leaving the brainless monsters to plummet below. But even as they escape, a new horror with glowing eyes emerges from the rot. Suddenly, a massive iron beast strikes the monsters from their unprotected rear. Behind the wheel, the regressor stares down the dead with a gaze of pure fire. Tons of cold steel flatten the undead into a bloody smear across the pavement. A multi-eyed monstrosity screams as a relentless wave of undead surges forward in hunger. Terrified soldiers watch as a massive blue energy wheel obliterates the charging monsters. Bathed in gore, the regressor stares back with eyes burning like a demonic flame. Before the fall, a simple bus ride carried the seeds of their future salvation. Dami hides her trembling hands, pretending to be just another face in the crowd. Her eyes widen in shock as she realizes the nightmare is starting much sooner. She confronts the man, questioning why he would expose himself to such immense danger. Whispering in terror, she warns him that the surrounding soldiers are watching his movements. The announcement of the elite unit's return sends a shockwave of panic through her. He simply smiles, vowing to hide his overwhelming power while playing a supporting role. The regressor hides his true power while taking the wheel of the heavy machinery. Dami watches in total disbelief as her father leads the charge into the chaos. Captain Cha commands her unit to retreat as the tension reaches a breaking point. A massive wave of mutated horrors surges forward to tear the survivors apart. Metal meets flesh as the heavy roller pulverizes everything standing in their way. The desperate convoy carves a bloody path through the overgrown ruins of the highway. Cheers erupt as the survivors realize they have actually made it through the slaughter. They arrive at a legendary stronghold that survived long into his previous life. He notes their record-breaking speed while his eyes burn with a hidden dark intensity. Haunted by her previous deaths, he refuses to deviate from his perfect winning strategy. The soldiers can't believe a mere civilian just saved their entire unit from certain death. He casually downplays his godlike mastery of the heavy machinery as a simple survival skill. As they dismount the wreckage, his casual words leave the elite captain completely stunned. He masks the trauma of 99 failed lives behind a chillingly calm and calculating smile. The gates of the stronghold open to a formal salute for the returning military hero. Shock sets in when she realizes her father predicted their arrival down to the second. The sudden mention of her father's name sends a shockwave through her disciplined mind. It seems her reputation as a stubborn warrior has already preceded her in this timeline. Enraged by the personal insults, she demands to find the man responsible for the leak. Meanwhile, the legendary hero simply waves goodbye as his daughter is whisked away to safety. Hayari freezes as reports of a sudden zombie breach reach her ears. She demands to know if the legendary colonel is leading the counterstrike, but the battalion commander stops her with a cryptic and unsettling correction. A nervous sweat drips as he reveals the truth about their leader. The colonel does not lead units because he clears entire battlefields alone. High above the rear gate, the soldiers watch the clock in disbelief. Only 35 minutes and 27 seconds have passed since he started. The guards scream in awe as the monster sets a terrifying new record. With a single brutal swing, a zombie's head is crushed into the dirt. He smiles, proving that primitive steel is deadlier than any modern firearm. Introducing the man known as the Blue Hawk, a commander who hunts monsters for sport. He laughs off the soldiers' warnings, mocking the idea that these creatures could ever bite him. Looking death in the eye, he explains that true mastery allows him to see everything. With a single glance, he gauges the combat strength of every enemy on the field. Standing atop a mountain of corpses, he insults the soldiers for their pathetic lack of skill. Even as a legendary warrior, he grumbles that his aging body is finally catching up. Disappointed by the weak opposition, he demands to know if any real challenges remain. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms as a mangled titan begins to stir behind him. The veteran warrior turns in surprise, shocked that the beast survived his initial onslaught. With a blood-curdling roar, the mutated nightmare lunges forward for one final, desperate kill. A sudden, violent impact shatters the air as the mutated titan is finally obliterated. The surviving soldiers can only watch in absolute terror as the dust settles. Emerging from the carnage, the legendary Blue Hawk stands ready for his next move. He explains that true masters can perceive things ordinary men could never imagine. He detects a monstrous combat power level radiating from the smiling stranger. The man introduces himself as Ryu Min-sok, claiming he only wants to help. Without a word of warning, the veteran warrior unleashes a lethal, crushing strike. His comrades scream in horror as he seemingly attacks a helpless civilian. They freeze in disbelief, unable to process the madness unfolding before their eyes. But the world stands still when the stranger stops the axe with ease. Panic erupts as the veteran colonel orders an immediate red-level security lockdown. He realizes the smiling stranger is a monster hiding behind a human mask. Those piercing eyes see through every deception and every hidden secret he holds. The legendary hero freezes when the boy speaks his true, hidden name. A single effortless move shatters the heavy metal axe into useless shards. The warrior draws his blade, but the intruder demands to stay and negotiate. Both men know that simple words have lost all meaning in this wasteland. Since diplomacy failed, he decides to use the brutal language of raw violence. Instead of fear, a terrifying grin spreads across the old soldier's weathered face. He clenches his fist, ready to unleash a power that could level the base. The mysterious boy finally reveals a terrifying power that shouldn't even exist. Even the legendary Blue Hawk is stunned by this sudden declaration of war. He has faced countless lunatics, but this challenger is on another level. Shedding his heavy armor, the veteran releases a tide of crushing blue energy. He lunges forward with a strike, meant to end the conversation permanently. Meanwhile, a deafening siren signals a code red across the entire survival base. Chaos erupts as the elite Captain Hayari demands to know the source of danger. A frantic officer arrives with news that will change the course of the war. Her eyes sharpen as she realizes this isn't a typical monster breach. The beast at the gates has a message, and it knows her name. Hayari stands paralyzed as the realization of a true monster's presence sinks in. Damie watches in horror as the legend she knows faces an impossible threat. Without warning, Ryu Min-sok unleashes a strike that defies all laws of physics. A single impact shatters the reinforced concrete wall like it was made of glass. The legendary Blue Hawk is sent reeling, his inhuman strength finally meeting its match. The mysterious challenger follows up with a crushing blow that leaves no recovery room. Glowing with a terrifying red light, the newcomer reveals his true, monstrous nature. Gritting his teeth against the pain, the veteran warrior struggles to stay conscious. The air screams as another high-speed assault tears through his remaining defenses. For the first time in 99 lives, the hero tastes the bitterness of defeat. The legendary hero finally lands a desperate strike against his monstrous opponent. But as the dust settles, the veteran realizes his best wasn't enough. Grabbing his collar, the hero demands to know how he can be this strong. With a chilling gaze, the challenger asks if that was really his full power. The mystery man admits he's been holding back to keep the old man alive. A cold warning follows. Going all out would mean certain death for the hero. For the first time in 99 lives, the Blue Hawk feels true, paralyzing fear. Every instinct in his battle-worn body screams that he is hopelessly outmatched. A terrifying red aura erupts, proving the gap between them is an infinite abyss. Broken and desperate, the warrior screams, demanding to know what this monster truly wants. The mysterious monster reveals his true desire is nothing more than simple protection. The battle-hardened hero laughs in disbelief that such a powerhouse would need shelter. With a cold and stern glare, the veteran warrior flatly rejects the strange request. But the challenger clarifies that his plea isn't for himself, but for his daughter. In the chaotic crowd, the young girl stands terrified alongside the military commander. The legendary Blue Hawk freezes as he considers the safety of those seeking refuge. Desperate to secure her future, the red-eyed beast falls to his knees in submission. As night falls over the survival base, a heavy silence masks the growing tension. Inside the holding room, the survivors whisper about the monster living among them. Rumors spread of his terrifying eyes, sparking a fear that he might be infected. Bound in cold steel, the man they call a zombie faces his final judgment. His crimson eyes reveal a hidden truth that no human can easily comprehend. The military commander finally grants refuge to the innocent people he brought along. But the legendary hero still views this mysterious warrior as a lethal threat. A desperate suggestion of total isolation leaves the veteran warrior stunned in silence. To earn their trust, the red-eyed beast willingly offers to enter solitary confinement. He is prepared to wait forever if it means securing his daughter's safety. Stripped of his freedom, the powerful fighter sits alone in a dark cell. A sudden sound from the high window interrupts the heavy silence of his prison. His daughter appears with a bright smile, oblivious to the high stakes involved. Dami reaches out through the cold iron bars to check on her imprisoned protector. She reassures him that the soldiers are kind, despite her sneaking out without permission. Meanwhile, the survivors she brought along struggle with the suffocating tension of the shelter. Inside the dim cell, the powerful warrior hangs his head in deep, silent shame. He carries the crushing weight of a broken promise made to the young girl. Memories of her past anger haunt him, fueling his belief that he failed her. Suddenly, a sharp strike against the bars forces him to look up once more. She reminds him that his strength is the only reason they are still alive. With a radiant smile, she declares her unwavering faith in his true heart. Before he can respond, she must vanish back into the shadows of the base. She offers a tender farewell to the man she now calls her father. As she retreats into the darkness, the heavy silence of the prison returns. For a fleeting moment, a glimmer of hope shines in her weary eyes. Behind the iron bars, the bound warrior watches her with a bittersweet smile. But the mask of joy quickly shatters as the crushing reality sets in. A single tear falls to the earth, marking the weight of their sacrifice. She can no longer hold back the agonizing sobs of a broken child. Alone in the shadows, he remains shackled by duty and heavy iron chains. His expression hardens, knowing the true battle for their survival has just begun. Outside, the rhythmic march of heavy boots signals an approaching, inevitable confrontation. Deep within the cold cell, the shackled warrior receives an unexpected visitor. An elite soldier announces that the High Commander is demanding an immediate audience. A massive, scarred hand points to a buried station on the city map. The legendary Blue Hawk reveals that their sensors detected multiple survivor frequencies. Among the standard waves, a single anomalous signal pulses with an impossible rhythm. This high-stakes rescue mission requires absolute speed and a very select team. The commander points a finger at the only man capable of surviving. He challenges the prisoner to prove his devotion to his young daughter. With a terrifying surge of energy, the heavy iron chains explode into fragments. The red-eyed monster stands ready, asking only when the operation begins. The legendary hero finally grins as the true battle begins at last. Two monsters unite to launch a desperate rescue mission into the dead city. Beneath the cold moonlight, the ruins of the old world wait in silence. Hidden deep within the wreckage lies the last bastion of human survival. A terrified child calls out for her parents in the suffocating darkness. Dozens of survivors huddle together, praying for a salvation that never comes. The young girl's cries echo through the hall, testing everyone's fragile patience. Bitter men snap at the mother, complaining that the noise will kill them. She bows her head in shame while the crowd glares with cold eyes. In this cruel world, even a child's tears are seen as a deadly sin. The innocent cries of a child pierce the heavy silence of the survival base. A mother clutches her daughter tightly as an unnatural chill fills the air. High above them, the very foundations of their sanctuary begin to groan and shift. From the deepest shadows, a predator with a single crimson eye watches its prey. Outside, a relentless tide of the undead drowns the ruined streets in screams. Suddenly, a blinding flash of steel and speed tears through the rotting horde. Within the chaos, the legendary Blue Hawk laughs at the face of certain death. His custom-armored beast shreds through the monsters like they are nothing but paper. He warns his new ally that the real danger lies in the unpredictable variables. For the survivors below, the only exit has become a tomb of twisted steel. The legendary Blue Hawk explains that a second threat is lurking in the shadows. He points to a digital map, revealing a horrifying truth about their destination. An unidentified monster is currently trapped alongside the innocent survivors they seek. Every passing second brings those people closer to a gruesome, inevitable end. His mysterious new ally stares at the data, realizing the mission is a suicide run. Their only hope lies in a narrow ventilation shaft that remains miraculously intact. The plan is simple: infiltrate the facility and extract everyone before the predator strikes. Deep within the ruins, survivors hang like macabre trophies in a sea of silk. One woman awakens to a nightmare, suspended upside down in a cold, dark tomb. She screams into the void, desperately searching for the child stolen by the web. The impact of the fall echoes through the web-covered ruins of the facility. Desperation takes over as she screams for the child stolen by the shadows. The survivors are nothing more than macabre trophies hanging from the cold ceiling. She begs for information, but these broken men have lost all their humanity. One prisoner snarls in pain, demanding to be freed from his sticky tomb. He glares at her with contempt, dismissing her grief as mere annoyance. She whispers for her mother as the weight of the nightmare finally breaks her. Driven by pure instinct, she races through the web-choked corridors of the ruin. The descent into the lightless subway marks the beginning of a suicide mission. She plunges down the stairs, ignoring the frantic warnings that the tracks are blocked. A haunting flashback reveals the moment the world first began to bleed. He screams in terror as the innocent are butchered by an unseen force. Driven by motherly instinct, she descends into the web-filled ruins of the subway. Her voice echoes through the darkness, promising her child that help is coming. But the stairs lead only to a sight that no parent should witness. A grotesque titan stands amidst the gore, holding a broken body like a toy. A bone-chilling shriek pierces the air, signaling the end of all hope. Tears stream down her face as her mind fractures under the sheer horror. She stares into the abyss, desperately wishing this nightmare was just a dream. Then, a sudden inferno consumes everything, turning the tragedy into a funeral pyre. She collapses in the ashes, her world shattered by the weight of absolute failure. Even the strongest warriors realize that their best efforts weren't enough to save anyone. A cold realization dawns as the hero prepares to reveal a horrifying truth. Standing amidst the ruins, he knows that human strength has reached its limit. Suddenly, an inferno erupts as Damie's father finally unleashes his true, godlike power. Before him stands a skinwalker, a nightmare creature that wears a human face. This high-rank spider mimics its prey to hunt those who dare to resist. The monster strikes with lethal precision, desperate to ensnare the man made of fire. But the beast is slammed into the earth by a force beyond its comprehension. He rains down a brutal barrage of flaming strikes, ending the creature's existence forever. He pours every ounce of his soul into a single, devastating inferno strike. But just as the finishing blow lands, a desperate voice shatters his focus. A mother's agonizing scream echoes through the ruins, pleading for her child's life. Sensing a shift, the hero turns to find a nightmare lingering in the smoke. The skinwalker reveals its true, horrific form, unhinging its jaw to scream. Paralyzed by pure terror, the woman realizes the monster has been playing her. The beast looms over its prey, as the father prepares to intervene once more. Ignoring his own exhaustion, he lunges forward to cut the creature down again. He collapses into the scorched earth, his body reaching its absolute breaking point. Yet, his eyes burn with a lethal resolve that no monster can ever extinguish. Driven by a daughter's unwavering faith, the cycle of despair finally begins to break. Consumed by a hellish inferno, the father commands his enemy to face its end. A single, earth-shattering strike echoes through the ruins as absolute power is unleashed. The monster's mask of mimicry shatters, revealing the raw terror of a cornered beast. It tries to beg for mercy with stolen words that no longer hold any meaning. A brutal uppercut tears through the air, silencing the creature's lies once and for all. Rejecting its pathetic pleas, he rains down a barrage of soul-crushing blows. The high-rank hunter becomes the hunted, broken, and discarded like common trash. Its final, agonizing screech reveals the true nature of the horror it once hid. Standing amidst the flames, He forces the nightmare to scream its own funeral song. He promises the monster that its only remaining language will be a scream. The skinwalker's stolen face melts away under the hero's absolute, incinerating heat. Meanwhile, the survival base's heavy doors groan under the pressure of a relentless horde. Terrified civilians throw their weight against the steel to keep the nightmare outside. One breach is all it takes for their sanctuary to become a mass grave. The defenders realize with horror that these silent monsters aren't typical, mindless zombies. A sudden, thick cloud of smoke begins to pour into the crowded hallway. Lee Sung-min gasps for air as the oxygen is replaced by a suffocating haze. Panic turns to despair as the survivors realize they are trapped in a furnace. Amidst the chaos, Damie cries out for the father she refuses to lose again. Lee Sung-min and the survivors brace against the door as the pressure suddenly vanishes. The scratching and pounding from the other side come to an eerie, silent halt. A heavy, ominous thud echoes through the metal, signaling the end of their sanctuary. The massive steel doors are torn apart by a force no human could possess. Panic erupts as the barricade shatters, leaving the terrified group completely exposed to death. Staring into the darkness, the survivors demand to know who has breached their base. Every eye is fixed on the mysterious figure standing amidst the wreckage and smoke. Ryu Min-so carries Dami through the carnage just before the Goopaball station rescue. Meanwhile, the legendary Blue Hawk surveys the ruins with a dark, confident grin. The final survivors stand together as the sun rises over their broken world. Soldiers entered an isolated tomb where escaping the undead was deemed strictly impossible. A sudden, sharp sensation signaled that they were not alone in the dark. Within the suffocating silence, they found a small child preserved in a silken cocoon. This tiny survivor was a miracle that defied the cruelty of their dying world. Years later, Damie watches as her father steps into the light of legend. The masses scream his name, hailing the man who achieved the impossible. Wrapped in a makeshift shroud, the warrior stands tall amidst the cheering crowd. Even elite commanders are left speechless by the overwhelming scale of his power. A boisterous laugh rings out as the veteran leader celebrates their perfect victory. With the mission complete, a father and daughter finally find peace in each other. Tension rises as a dark omen hangs over the quiet living quarters. A weary sergeant struggles to breathe while his comrade offers a moment of comfort. The soldier promises relief, oblivious to the nightmare brewing behind that closed door. With a heavy click, the lock seals a fate no one could have predicted. The sergeant lies still, but the silence is merely a mask for something hungry. Suddenly, the human facade shatters as a monstrous predator reveals its true face. Far from the terror, a new dawn breaks under the title of fatherhood. The survivors erupt in joy, celebrating a hard-won victory they thought was impossible. A cold drink is raised to the sky, marking the end of the slaughter. The legendary Blue Hawk laughs, finally tasting the peace he fought lifetimes to find. The veteran warrior admits he saw greatness in the young man from the start. He laughs heartily, praising Min-seok for exceeding every impossible expectation today. Amidst the hard-won peace, he suggests they keep their celebration quiet and respectful. A somber memorial stands as a haunting reminder of the comrades they lost. He raises a drink to those who died and those destined to survive. Steel meets steel as they toast to a future bought with blood, but beneath the surface, Min-seok carries a weight no human could endure. He asks why the legendary hero refuses to question his strange, monstrous nature. The air grows cold, as he wonders if the truth behind his power matters. With a look of absolute certainty, the father reveals he already knows the secret. The legendary hero dismisses trivial tales, focused only on the harsh reality before them. Min-seok watches in silence, sensing the immense weight behind the older man's words. To the Blue Hawk, only the iron will to save lives truly matters now. A boisterous laugh echoes through the camp, masking a lifetime of buried trauma. Min-seok notes that despite the regression, the man's core remains completely unchanged. Around them, the survivors cling to hope, unaware of the monsters lurking nearby. The father questions why a man of Min-seok's power hasn't already fled to safety, but the newcomer has unfinished business that keeps him tied to this doomed brigade. His eyes glow with a lethal intensity, hinting at a secret purpose yet unfulfilled. He remembers the rain-soaked tragedy of a past life where rushing only led to death. The legendary hero locks eyes with the man who shouldn't even exist. Amidst the fleeting peace of the camp, deadly secrets begin to unravel. He knows that in this cruel world, a child is the ultimate weakness. But a sudden question about the missing captain sends a chill through him. The veteran drowns his growing unease in a desperate, frantic gulp of alcohol. Suddenly, a familiar face from a tragic past interrupts their heavy conversation. She claims exhaustion is taking its toll, her voice trembling with hidden sickness. Sensing a dark opportunity, the mysterious newcomer offers to guide her away. As they disappear into the shadows, the hero watches with a sinking heart. Behind a cold, calculated smile, the monster's true intentions finally start to bleed. Ryu Min-sok drinks alone, masking the terrifying power of a man who died many times. He realizes his target is heading for Daejeon and vows to never let them escape. A cold calculation begins as he watches the mysterious newcomer lure his daughter away. The veteran hero maintains his cover, offering a casual drink to the approaching brigade commander. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as a soldier collapses, coughing from a deadly, unseen problem. The newcomer watches with cold, predatory eyes, his true intentions hidden behind a calm mask. Min-seok knows that in this world, the most dangerous thing to control is a child. His daughter stands at the center of a storm she does not yet understand or remember. She stops in her tracks, hearing a name that echoes from a century of tragedy. The newcomer finally corners her, preparing to ask a question that could end the world. The predator looms over the girl, testing the limits of her paralyzing fear. He remembers a time when his body was a temple of blood and slaughter. Back then, she accepted him as her father without a single moment of doubt. But now he trembles, asking if she truly fears the man standing before her. A chilling admission follows, confirming that the terror has always been mutual. He confesses to living in constant dread that she might one day kill him. The weight of the long-held deception finally becomes too heavy to carry anymore. Her voice cracks with agony as she demands the one truth he cannot hide. Fury ignites in her eyes as she denounces the monster wearing her father's face. The shock on his face grows as she continues to call for her father. Damie senses a chilling shift, questioning the man she calls her father. He deflects with a forced smile, hiding the monster lurking deep within. A sudden, violent coughing fit shatters the eerie silence of the night. Her condition worsens as darkness swallows the silent city building in shadow. He urges her to retreat inside, playing the role of a worried protector. Suddenly, his eyes ignite with a predatory and murderous red glow. Without warning, he lunges forward with the speed of a professional killer. A massive, mutated fist swings through the air with terrifying, crushing force. She screams in absolute terror, watching him stare at his own hand. The lethal strike was aimed only at a single, crushed mosquito. A terrifying code black protocol shatters the night as Dami watches in horror. Chaos erupts across the base while a sudden zombie outbreak consumes the soldiers. Min-seok calmly reveals that he was the one who named the monster eater. He recalls how the creature once looked pathetic compared to its current form. A grim warning follows as he realizes these monsters are starting to evolve. Pung Ho explains they are becoming more cunning and powerful than anyone ever imagined. The relentless threat lunges from the shadows as the warrior prepares for battle. A mutated nightmare screams with a hunger that will never be truly satisfied. Min-seok proves his overwhelming strength by crushing the brigade-level threat with ease. The Blue Hawk strikes with a savagery that leaves no room for mercy. A decapitated corpse falls as the crowd watches their savior in absolute horror. Min-seok roars for the survivors to move before the nightmare claims them all. Paralyzed by fear, the soldiers can barely comprehend the carnage unfolding before them. Panic erupts across the base, while the legendary warrior stands amidst the chaos. Rage boils within him as he realizes the infection has breached his inner sanctum. His sharp eyes lock onto a detail that shouldn't be there. A mysterious mark on the creature reveals a truth far more sinister than hunger. A sudden scream pierces the air, forcing him to face an even greater threat. The base descends into a blood-soaked nightmare as the undead swarm the survivors. Amidst the carnage, the legendary warrior leaps forward with a makeshift weapon. He strikes with devastating precision, crushing the skull of the first monster. Standing firm, he barks orders at the soldiers to recover his gear. His eyes glow with an ancient fury that demands absolute, immediate obedience. No creature can stand against him as he carves through the chaos. With a single brutal swing, he reminds the monsters who owns this battlefield. He shouts that this entire kingdom belongs to a single, powerful name. Every strike reinforces the legacy that Cha Dong-ho built with his own hands. He plunges his makeshift weapon through the heart of the undead nightmare. Blood sprays across the cold night as he tears through the endless horde. Even when an ambush comes from his blind side, he remains unshakable. With a grunt of effort, he throws back the creature trying to consume him. His roar echoes through the darkness, fueled by a century of failed loops. Emergency sirens blare as the military desperately orders everyone to find immediate cover. A haunting memory flickers of a hand reaching out to secure her safety. The manipulative imposter warns her that she must never take off her gear. Behind her mask, she wonders what kind of monsters are truly lurking outside. The imposter warns that tiny mosquito zombies are now hunting them down. Even after countless regressions, this terrifying new variant has never appeared before. Fury consumes him as he realizes the rules of the game have changed. He desperately claims his identity, knowing Damie's death means the end for everyone. These swarming monsters are merely limbs for a much greater, hidden threat. Elsewhere, the military reels in shock as the nightmare begins to spread. Soldiers scramble to follow urgent survival orders sent by a mysterious expert. She can't believe the legendary Ryu Min-sok is the one giving the advice. Somewhere in the shadows, the true hero prepares for a war like no other. The legendary warrior stands firm against a shadow from his past as fate shifts. Back at the front lines, the captain feels a chilling weight in the air. She commands her troops to seal their suits against the encroaching, invisible nightmare. Desperation takes hold as she searches for a leader who has mysteriously vanished. Her men tremble in silence, unable to explain the true horror unfolding around them. A frantic cry from the perimeter forces everyone to look toward the dark horizon. They report a single entity standing alone, defying the logic of the swarming horde. This isn't just another mindless corpse. Its very presence feels wrong and alien. Beneath the towering walls, a monstrous shadow prepares to tear the world apart. A grotesque creature emerges from the shadows, its red eyes glowing with malice. Tiny insects dance around the beast as it prepares an unthinkable biological assault. The monster unhinges its jaw, revealing a void that defies all natural laws. A literal tide of blood-sucking death erupts, sending the soldiers into a panic. The horizon turns black as a million wings blot out the moonlight itself. High above the chaos, a legendary figure descends like a god of war. The captain freezes in disbelief as she recognizes the man who shouldn't exist. Ryu Min-seok roars at the survivors, his presence shifting the battlefield's crushing weight. Meanwhile, an arrogant impostor refuses to retreat, while the terrified Dami watches helplessly. The impostor adjusts his gear, desperate to maintain his facade in this nightmare. He assures the girl that no monster can pierce his supposedly invincible defense. Nearby, the helpless can only weep as they pray for a miracle to happen. Trembling under the weight of her gaze, the fake hero finally reaches his limit. Dami pleads through her tears, begging him to save the people trapped with them. A sudden shockwave of raw power shatters the concrete beneath his feet. He activates the heavy equipment, fueled by a desperation he cannot hope to hide. With a roar of defiance, he prepares to unleash a tide of scorched earth. A massive pillar of flame incinerates the sky, turning the horizon into an inferno. A sea of fire erases the swarm as the legendary hero stands his ground. Every winged nightmare is reduced to ash in a matter of seconds. His eyes burn with the same intensity as the inferno he just unleashed. But something far more grotesque watches him from the shadows below. The distorted beast launches itself upward with terrifying, supernatural speed. He grits his teeth as the sudden realization of a new threat hits. Hurled into the moonlit abyss, the hero barely maintains his composure. He slams onto a moving vehicle just as the chaos reaches a boiling point. Beside him, the captain demands to know if this is the true culprit. High above, the creature that slaughtered their entire brigade continues its hunt. The captain demands to know if he truly possesses the secret to killing it. With a cold and certain gaze, he confirms that he knows exactly what to do. She decides they will hunt the monster first before settling their own score. Memories of her interrogation resurface, fueled by a mountain of unanswered questions. She warns him that any further deception will lead to immediate and lethal consequences. Accepting the terms of their fragile alliance, he offers a silent, resolute nod. A heavy boot slams onto the accelerator, signaling the start of their desperate charge. Their vehicle tears through the moonlight, racing toward the heart of the enemy territory. Far below the mountain peaks, a silent village remains unaware of the approaching storm. Deep within the shadows of a jagged cave, a new nightmare patiently awaits its prey. A low-level slider waits at the cave entrance, oblivious to the coming slaughter. These parasitic zombies multiply by copying every living organism they touch. The creature shrieks into the abyss, calling out to its hidden master. From the suffocating blackness, 3 crimson eyes fixate on their next meal. The true host reveals its grotesque form, a nightmare lurking within the shadows. This primary body rarely leaves the safety of the dark, making it untraceable. It towers over its minions, a silent predator that remains completely invisible to hunters. To draw it out, the legendary hero unleashes a strike of pure, blinding power. Ryu Min-seok knows that only a brutal surprise attack can end this cycle. He crushes the parasite into the earth, forcing the hidden infection to finally emerge. A violent surge of energy erupts, marking the end of the initial struggle. Blinding flames consume the darkness, signaling a temporary victory for the survivors. Captain Cha remains vigilant, her weapon leveled at any remaining threats. She barks orders through the radio, demanding the mission be finished perfectly. The cleanup phase begins as she confirms the area is finally under control. Relief washes over the crowd as families realize their children are finally safe. Deep within the hero, a crimson gaze reflects the heavy cost of leadership. Minsok's piercing blue eyes narrow, already calculating the next move. He quietly acknowledges the captain's gratitude for saving those who were lost. Soldiers unleash torrents of fire to erase every trace of the parasitic infection. Cha questions the mysterious newcomer's impossible knowledge as the final battle looms. He warns that unless the host dies, the entire brigade faces certain annihilation. Pushing her doubts aside, the captain realizes that survival outweighs her curiosity. She masks up for the assault, following his lead to block every escape. But as he turns away, a heavy silence falls over the desolate landscape. His eyes burn with a cold intensity, knowing a simple plan won't suffice. The nightmare reveals its true nature, a grotesque cycle of infinite, horrific reproduction. Standing before an endless sea of eyes, he faces a swarm beyond calculation. He explains the terrifying truth that killing the host alone won't stop regeneration. Struck by the hopelessness of the situation, the captain can only stare in silence. The captain asks if he truly has a method to stop the madness. He gives a short, chilling answer that seals the fate of their enemies. Planting his feet, the legendary warrior prepares to unleash his overwhelming power. A massive blue explosion shatters the earth, incinerating everything in its path. The blast reveals the horrifying truth lurking beneath the surface of the hive. He explains that ending this cycle of reproduction is a simple task. Standing alone against the swarm, he prepares for an endless massacre. A terrifying smile escapes his lips as his ultimate plan falls into place. Violent memories of the failed loops flash by, showing the daughter he lost. Damie reaches out through her tears, yearning for the father who never stopped. His burning rage reaches a boiling point that no human can contain. He tears through the monstrosities like a force of pure, unadulterated nature. The aftermath of his power leaves nothing but a crater of absolute silence. Watching from the shadows, the captain realizes he is no longer human. She recalls the day her orders changed to support this impossible man. Her commander warned her that this warrior was more than a mere soldier. He is the final answer for a humanity pushed to the very brink. Back in the present, frantic voices call out to her through the radio. Standing amidst the wreckage, she struggles to process the scale of destruction. The mission has changed, and the true monster might be on their side. Darkness shrouded the valley as a question echoed through the silent, empty woods. Then the sun rose over a landscape forever changed by the night's slaughter. Beneath the golden rays, the shattered earth began to pulse with terrifying heat. After 18 hours of carnage, a blood-soaked hand finally clawed from the wreckage. Over 7 million nightmare entities had swarmed this location to consume the world. Yet every single one of those monsters now lay dead beneath his feet. His muscles twitched with the strain of a battle that defied all logic. Every inch of his body was painted in the gore of his fallen enemies. A single transcendent being had achieved what an entire army could never do. The official report confirmed the impossible truth of humanity's most violent victory. High above the silent base, the night sky hid a secret soon revealed. Captain Cha stood frozen as the impossible reality finally began to sink in. Before her stood the man who had just single-handedly slaughtered an entire legion. His massive frame cast a shadow that commanded the respect of every soldier. She couldn't comprehend how a human could survive such a catastrophic battlefield. The horrific silence was broken by the crinkle of a cheap snack bag. Covered in blood, the legendary hero sat casually munching amidst the carnage. Her shock turned to pure irritation at his complete lack of military decorum. He simply roared with laughter, finding her desperate concern absolutely hilarious. Their past was defined by his refusal to follow any of her strict rules. He laughs in her face, mocking the idea that he could ever actually die. A soldier reveals the impossible. Their savior blocked the entire horde barehanded. Because of his suicidal bravery, every single civilian made it out of the slaughter alive. He casually brushes off a bloody wound, claiming he is no longer in his prime. Disgusted by his arrogance, she turns away from the man she calls a monster. Suddenly, she senses a powerful presence approaching from the shadows of the base. The High Commander arrives, demanding to know where their secret weapon has gone. His eyes burn with urgency, asking if the primary threat has been neutralized. He recalls the chilling words spoken just yesterday about their mysterious savior. To the world, Ryu Minshuk isn't just a man. He is humanity's answer. Captain Cha stands alone, haunted by the memory of the man who saved them. She finally begins to understand the heavy burden that monster was carrying alone. A simple gift sits in her hand, a small token for an impossible debt. She desperately tries to find a natural way to offer him a cold drink, but her pride clashes with her gratitude as she screams in pure social frustration. Her erratic behavior draws confused stares from the soldiers passing by the balcony. They whisper about their legendary captain acting strange while she battles her inner demons. She questions if a liar even deserves a gesture of kindness from her. Yet his blood-stained smile lingers in her mind, refusing to let her walk away. She admits that regardless of his secrets, Ryu Min-sok is their true savior. Captain Cha spots the mysterious savior, standing with the high-ranking brigade commander. She wonders what business a legendary warrior has with the military top brass. Thinking a third person might ease the tension, she prepares her small gift. But as she approaches, the air turns cold with a sudden, heavy pressure. Min-sok stands his ground, his voice devoid of any warmth or loyalty. He announces his immediate departure, leaving the captain frozen in total disbelief. The commander stands paralyzed, realizing their only hope is walking away forever. Desperation takes hold as he begs the monster slayer to reconsider his choice. He warns of impending extinction, yet Min-sok's eyes remain terrifyingly indifferent. Hidden in the shadows, she hears the brutal truth of his cold heart. The cold rejection pierces through her like a blade, shattering her remaining hope. Min-sok turns his back on the military, abandoning the world to its fate. She screams in desperation, unable to believe he would truly walk away now. His response is a single, chilling confirmation that their lives mean absolutely nothing. To him, only his daughter matters, while the rest of humanity can simply burn. She bites her lip until it bleeds, suppressing the agony of his brutal betrayal. With a final, sharp turn, she retreats from the man she once trusted. He watches her leave with eyes that have seen too much death to care. The small gift she brought lies forgotten in the dirt, a symbol of broken bonds. She curses her own weakness, forever expecting mercy from a literal monster. Captain Cha marches away, cursing the dangerous spark of attraction she feels for him. He watches her from the shadows, knowing he must sever their bond immediately. Walking away is the only way to keep her safe from his path. The commander warns him that isolation will only lead to certain ruin. A desperate proposal is made to turn this brigade into humanity's final fortress. The legendary hero considers the offer, but a darker truth haunts his mind. The ticking clock reveals a terrifying shift in the timeline he once knew. In his previous life, the ultimate nightmare took a decade to arrive. Now, these monstrous entities have emerged in a mere 10 days. Massive shadows loom over the base, signaling an inevitable and bloody collapse. The legendary hero breaks his silence by making a choice that changes everything. He announces that he and Dami are heading straight into the dead zone. Their destination is the ruined city of Daejeon, where only death awaits them. Deep within those ruins, a colossal nightmare of eyes and teeth begins stirring. This high-rank entity hungers for blood as it prepares to slaughter the living. Standing before the commander, Min-sok refuses to compromise his dangerous new path. Instead, he offers a final proposal to the leader of this failing fortress. A heavy iron convoy prepares to roll out into the pitch-black wasteland. Suddenly, the silence of the night is shattered by a deafening, fiery explosion. The undead are consumed by flames as the final war for survival begins. Min-sok questions the commander's curiosity about the dark truth of their world. The commander clings to the hope of finding a perfect, final sanctuary. Taking his place at the wheel, Min-sok prepares to lead the expedition. He looks back one last time, bearing the weight of 99 failures. Captain Cha offers a rare smile, ready to face the unknown together. With eyes glowing red, he declares the start of their desperate journey. Under a torrential downpour, the team reaches the desolate Miho River Bridge. A horrific, towering entity erupts from the darkness with a bone-chilling shriek. Lightning illuminates the nightmare as it reaches hungrily toward the storming skies. Watching from afar, the scouts realize the massive scale of the coming slaughter. The scouts analyze a high-level entity appearing as a massive, viscous slug. Drones capture the nightmare, leaking lethal toxins from every pore of its body. A single touch means instant death as the poison coats the entire battlefield. With the only bridge blocked, Min-sok reveals the monster's weakness is the sun. Ultraviolet rays will harden its skin and strip away its terrifying agility. One precise strike to the head center is the only way to kill it. The commander prepares for a dawn strike while confirming no other threats remain. Under the heavy rain, the weary brigade takes a moment to maintain their gear. Amidst the silence, the soldiers begin to whisper about their mysterious, overpowered savior. The commander watches Min-sok, wondering how one man knows so much about death. Soldiers whisper about how a stranger could know so much about the undead. Doubts spread as they question if he lived through the apocalypse before them. One soldier mocks the commander for trusting a man who shouldn't even exist. But the legendary leader is listening, his terrifying presence silencing the treacherous gossip. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierces through the relentless and freezing mountain rain. The commander punishes the loudmouth while the true danger lurks in the shadows. Elsewhere, Dami finally stands, her body aching from hours of hiding in silence. She remains unaware that her every move is being watched by a predator. A man with glowing red eyes emerges, calling her name with chilling familiarity. Terrified, she collapses as the mysterious figure closes in to claim his prize. Damie jumps in shock as the man suddenly appears behind her in the rain. He offers her food, but his presence is still too haunting to ignore. She stares at him, trying to reconcile this face with her lost father. A chilling question follows, asking if he truly looks like the man she remembers. The air grows heavy as the legendary hero flinches at her cold reaction. He forces a nervous laugh to hide the growing desperation within his weary soul. Damie calls out his name, demanding he stop his rambling and speak the truth. He is paralyzed by a question he was always too terrified to ask her. He wonders why she accepted a monster like him as her own father. Then she points to his eyes, the only part of him that remained unchanged. He desperately searches for the reason why his daughter looks at him with terror. Memories of her childhood flood back as she stands alone in the pouring rain. She remembers the day they said their final goodbyes to her mother. Since that tragic moment, one specific look has been burned into her mind. It was the way her father used to gaze at her with such warmth. Yet those same eyes always carried a heavy, unbearable weight of pity. He lived his life constantly apologizing for a world he couldn't fix. His endless guilt only served to fuel her growing resentment toward him. To her, he was the most pathetic man she had ever known. But looking at him now, the legendary hero finally reveals his true self. Everything changed 2 weeks ago when a blood-soaked figure stepped from the rain. She collapsed in shock as the massive, wounded warrior stood over her. Her breath hitched, caught between the terror of the moment and sudden recognition. Despite the carnage, his eyes radiated a kindness she hadn't seen in years. He was the only one who ever looked at her with such love. A gentle smile touched her lips as she finally accepted the impossible truth. Suddenly, a gargantuan monster shatters the bridge, screaming into the morning sky. The commander roars the order to unleash a relentless barrage of heavy fire. Explosions rock the beast as the military desperately tries to halt its advance. The legendary hero sprints up the monster, blades drawn for the killing blow. The legendary hero descends like a divine bolt, blades glowing with unstoppable power. Stunned by the carnage, the soldiers struggle to process the impossible scene. The commander silences the panic, forcing his men to stay focused. He declares that in this hell, survival is no longer a matter of choice. A colossal limb crashes down, sending a violent shockwave through the battlefield. Standing atop the mountain of flesh, the warrior surveys his absolute destruction. The commander realizes that trusting this man is their only path to survival. Flickers of a previous life emerge, revealing the burden of his 99th failure. He spent hundreds of grueling days wandering through ruins to reach his goal. Now, the final loop begins with the weight of every past death. Blood-stained steps lead toward the group only 2 weeks after the world ended. Damie stares in disbelief as she finally reaches the man she has been seeking. Even the hardened commander cannot hide his shock at seeing the legendary warrior return. Min-sok stands tall before the city. He sacrificed everything to reach in this life. To understand this miracle, we must go back 11 days to the outbreak's start. The first monsters fell quickly as the military designated the primary targets for elimination. Brutal force crushed the infected beneath the weight of an unforgiving counter-offensive. Against all odds, the defense of Daejeon was declared a massive blood-soaked success. Inside the command, center officers cheered for the first victory in this living nightmare. But their joy was hollow as reports confirmed every other metropolitan area had fallen. Panic erupts as reports confirm only one city remains standing amidst total collapse. Communication with the front lines is severed, leaving the military leadership completely blind. The commander slams his fist as the weight of a dying nation falls. This unstoppable infection has spread far beyond any hope of containment or survival. Looking at the terminal, it seems the end of the world is finally here. But a miracle occurs as one unit achieves the impossible in 3 days. Against all logic, a single sector confirms a total and successful defense. The legendary Blue Hawk unit stands ready to reclaim the blood-soaked streets. Their elite squad requests immediate authorization to expand the operation into the darkness. Now the commander must decide if this miracle is enough to save humanity. The commander barks a desperate order as the weight of survival crushes his soul. Behind a cold gas mask, the elite soldier silently accepts her final suicide mission. He knows that if this unit fails, humanity has absolutely nothing left to lose. Blood-soaked streets and piles of the fallen serve as a grim, silent warning. Yet, beneath the reinforced steel helmets, a tiny flicker of hope refuses to die. They must secure the central tower to reclaim their right to a future. Suddenly, a colossal nightmare with glowing red eyes descends to end their struggle. Emerging from the chaos, Min-seok and his daughter finally reach their promised sanctuary. The commander stares in shock, finding a reality far different from his dark memories. Before them lies a golden city, more beautiful than any dream they dared imagine. The commander roars with laughter as the impossible reality of Daejeon finally sets in. Hardened soldiers weep openly, seeing a city that somehow survived the end of days. Dami gazes at her father, realizing his promises of a sanctuary were finally true. But Minsok senses a chilling presence lurking beneath the city's golden, peaceful surface. Seeing the sudden change in his eyes, Dami whispers her father's name in fear. Something is deeply wrong here, a wrongness that defies everything he knows about survival. He remembers when the outbreak first turned every city into a rain-soaked graveyard. Then came the brutal counterattack, reclaiming the streets one blood-stained block at a time. Back then, he carried his daughter into a ruin where hope was barely alive. Now, a massive fortress stands where only shadows and death used to rule. Building an entire city in 14 days is an impossible miracle. Yet a freezing sensation of dread begins to consume Minsok. His battle-hardened instincts scream that this golden piece is a lie. He warns Dami to stay close and never leave his side. His sudden dark intensity leaves the young girl trembling in fear. Nearby, the commander prepares his men to investigate the surrounding area. An anxious soldier approaches to deliver a brief but vital report. He nervously asks permission to share a discovery from his tablet. The commander demands to know if there is a serious problem. The soldier describes a chilling anomaly spotted on the Seong Plains. The reconnaissance mission uncovers a chilling sight hidden within the golden fields. A young soldier stares in disbelief at the impossible patterns carved into the earth. Massive, unnatural lines stretch across the landscape, invisible to those on the ground. He urgently presents the drone footage to his commander, shaking with visible dread. The high-definition recording reveals a mystery that defies every law of tactical logic. The commander gasps as he realizes someone has drawn a gargantuan, terrifying image. Suddenly, the legendary hero lunges forward, seizing the commander with overwhelming, raw strength. Pain flares through the leader's arm as he demands an explanation for this outburst. A dark, suffocating shadow falls over Minsok's face as his instincts finally scream. Staring at the screen, he realizes this omen signals a nightmare he cannot escape. The sun sets over the Expo Tower as a new nightmare begins in Daejeon. A panicked soldier reports that 10 suspicious intruders have been spotted near the mountain. High above the city, a mysterious leader listens to the report from the shadows. He commands his men to welcome these newcomers with the highest possible honors. Deep in the woods, Minsok and Dami sense a suffocating pressure in the air. A dark premonition takes hold as the tablet begins to flicker with light. A golden goddess on the display reveals a terrifying omen that stops his heart. The gnawing dread inside him finally finds its source in a man of shadow. Two monsters lock eyes across the distance, ready to face a world-ending wave. 2 weeks ago, this place was a graveyard, and the storm is returning now. A broken city mourns the loss of everything they ever loved. But in their darkest hour, a blinding light pierces the gloom. One man screams a name that promises salvation to the masses. From the heavens, a figure descends like a god among men. The desperate crowd erupts in a feverish, tearful celebration of hope. Meet Baek Do-hyun, the blindfolded savior and mayor of this fortress. He steps to the microphone, his voice carrying the weight of destiny. He reminds them that humanity stands on the brink of total extinction. With a raised fist, he declares their survival is a divine victory. This isn't luck, but a calculated defiance against the end of days. He screams that they are the final flame, a hope destined to blaze again. The masses weep his name as he vows to carry the weight of their survival. He promises to sacrifice his own life as fuel to protect this radiant sanctuary. Standing like a god, he commands the very spirit of the desperate survivors below. A deafening roar erupts as he pledges to fight until the very bitter end. But in the shadows, the true warriors watch this theatrical display with cold eyes. The commander questions if this cult-like fervor is truly the civilization they once knew. Minsok shields his daughter, sensing something deeply wrong with this so-called paradise. To the starving citizens, this spectacle is a miracle worth every tear they shed. Minsok stares down the laughing savior, recognizing a monster hidden behind a holy mask. Minsok remembers the legendary Blue Hawk unit that once rebuilt this shattered world. But in this timeline, those elite warriors have been reduced to mere disposable puppets. Something is deeply wrong because the one man who could stop this is missing. The heroic leader, Shin Ji-woo, has vanished, leaving a void no one can fill. Minsok realizes a mysterious variable has completely warped the reality of this city. He looks at the blindfolded mayor, a man whose holy mask hides something sinister. The mayor welcomes the newcomers with a smile that feels like a death sentence. He demands a roaring cheer just as a lethal canister sails through the air. A sudden, violent explosion rips through the sanctuary, turning the celebration into pure chaos. Minsok shields his daughter as toxic smoke fills the room, signaling a deadly trap. Minsok pulls his daughter close, checking for injuries amidst the suffocating haze. He realizes this wasn't an accident but a calculated strike from the shadows. His sharp gaze pierces through the fog, searching for the source of the chaos. The blindfolded mayor collapses, gasping for air as the toxic smoke fills his lungs. He stumbles blindly, unaware that a cold shadow is closing in for the kill. A silent assassin emerges from the mist, leveling a pistol at the mayor's head. With a single, deafening blast, the city's self-proclaimed savior is silenced forever. The horrified crowd watches in terror as their leader falls in a pool of blood. Soldiers swarm the shooter, pinning the traitor to the ground in a desperate frenzy. Beneath the mask lies the man they thought was gone, the legendary Shin Ji-woo. Min-sok and Dami watch in absolute disbelief as the chaos unfolds before them. The captured assassin is unmasked, revealing the face of the legendary hero, Shin Ji-woo. He screams for the people to wake up from the mayor's twisted, lying influence. Behind his desperate gaze lies a truth that could shatter the city's false peace. The crowd trembles as the realization of their long-standing deception finally begins to sink in. But the fallen mayor stands tall, his white suit drenched in his own blood. Terror grips the onlookers as the man they thought was dead begins to rise. A fanatic cries out in joy while the monster claims his miraculous, bloody resurrection. Ji-woo can only watch in horror as his target defies the laws of death. The immortal monster smiles, declaring this gruesome massacre a truly blessed day for all. Pinned down and silenced, the veteran warrior is framed for an impossible crime. The bloodied mayor stands tall, twisting the narrative to turn the people against him. A public execution is declared, sealing the fate of the man who sought truth. Blinded by lies, the furious mob demands blood for their fallen savior. Locked in heavy stocks, Ji-woo faces a crowd that has completely lost its mind. A single gesture confirms the sentence as the crowd screams for a final judgment. Thousands gather under the tower, united by a terrifying and manufactured faith. He credits the people for his resurrection, deepening his grip on their shattered souls. The City of Miracles hails its master, while the innocent are cast into darkness. Fanaticism takes hold as they believe a divine power has finally blessed their hearts. The fanatical crowd roars, desperate to rekindle a flame that should have died. Their blood-soaked savior laughs, claiming to be the light in this rotting world. Tears of madness stream down their faces as they chant for their city. Min-sok watches in horror while Ji-woo remains trapped in the center of it. A twisted miracle screams into the void, fueling the fire of their collective insanity. Amidst the chaos, the legendary hero feels a dark power awakening within his soul. Memories of a past life flicker, showing a man facing his final, desperate end. A divine presence descended from the heavens, offering a deal signed in blood. He transformed into something monstrous, a shadow that no longer belongs to humanity. Now he stands alone, the only one who can stop this manufactured apocalypse. Min-sok stares at the city, finally understanding the source of his suffocating dread. Beside him, Dami trembles as the weight of the coming nightmare sinks in. Every fractured memory and bloody encounter finally snaps into a horrifying new reality. The truth is laid bare, standing right in front of his very eyes. He looks at Bak Do-hyun and realizes they share a dark, impossible secret. A chilling realization crawls up his spine as he stares at the monster. He is nothing more than a zombie, a monster wearing a human mask. Under the cover of night, the time for standing still has officially ended. The soldiers urge an immediate retreat before the city's madness swallows them whole. Safely inside the base, the brigade prepares for the inevitable, final confrontation. The soldiers sense a deep, unsettling wrongness lurking within the city's perfect walls. Behind closed doors, the brigade realizes the citizens have completely lost their minds. They identify the blindfolded mayor as the most dangerous and unhinged man alive. A horrifying story emerges about a staged execution that nearly turned their stomachs. Every miracle they witnessed was nothing more than a scripted and bloody performance. One soldier recalls the cold terror of watching the madness unfold from the shadows. He watched as a gunman held the mayor at point-blank range on stage. Even with death staring him down, the blindfolded monster could not stop smiling. Now another public execution looms, threatening to spill even more innocent blood. Their former leader remains trapped, waiting for a rescue that might never come. The tension in the room reaches a breaking point as the soldiers sense danger. Suddenly, the commander orders everyone to evacuate the area immediately. He demands that only the legendary hero remains behind for a private confrontation. The men hesitate, stunned by the weight of their leader's chilling command. Even Dami is forced away, her heart heavy with fear for her father. Left alone, the two warriors face the unspoken darkness between them. In the absolute silence of the room, a terrifying secret begins to surface. The commander finally asks if the mayor is truly a monster in human skin. Ryu confirms that the aura he sensed was far from being human. Behind the mayor's smile hides a nightmare that defies every law of nature. The commander demands to know if this entire nightmare was a staged deception. But the legendary hero stands firm, denying any alliance with the monstrous mayor. He knows making an enemy of this man puts Dami in immediate danger. To him, the blindfolded savior is a variable that threatens every future timeline. Seeing the truth in his eyes, the commander finally lowers his guard. A grim pact is formed within the silent walls of the private room. He barks a final order to mobilize and return to the front lines. Outside, the fortress stands tall against the encroaching darkness of the night. The commander carries the heavy burden of a dream for a restored nation. He envisions a city reborn from ashes as humanity's final outpost for survival. Daejeon is drowning in a sea of fanatical, mindless laughter that defies all reason. The commander realizes that intervening in this city will only lead to a massive headache. Ryu Min-sok agrees to step back, but his true plan is already in motion. Soon, he arrives at the heavily fortified gates of the city inner sanctum. The guards are caught off guard by the audacity of a single man approaching. He introduces himself with a name that carries the weight of 99 failed lives. They try to turn him away, claiming the mayor has no time for commoners. He asks them to relay a specific message that will change everything in seconds. His smile is dangerous, signaling the start of a game only he can win. Within moments, he is granted an audience with the blindfolded ruler of the city. The blindfolded ruler demands to know what the legendary regressor truly wants. Min-seok smiles, knowing his arrival was expected by the city's deceptive savior. He questions why he was granted an audience so easily in this fortress. A confident look confirms that the hero is ready to play this dangerous game. Min-seok lays out his terms, demanding a peaceful exit for his entire group. The weary commander warns that the city has become a fanatical, bloodthirsty cult. Innocent survivors are hunted down as madness consumes every corner of the city. The mob celebrates as they burn those who refuse to follow their leader. Min-seok warns that staying in this hellhole will lead to total annihilation. Without a swift escape, this loop will only end in more senseless slaughter. Min-seok realizes that the mayor might be a regressor just like him. Baek Do-hyun sits with chilling composure, ready to dismantle his guest's secrets. The blindfolded savior senses the hero's rising discomfort in this suffocating room. The commander snaps, demanding to know the truth behind this twisted game. Min-seok prepares to gamble everything by revealing his true identity tomorrow morning. Shocked by the plan, the leader wonders what kind of madness is unfolding. With a dark smirk, the hero decides to introduce himself as something inhuman. He whispers the terrifying truth that they are both cut from the same cloth. Claiming to be the goddess chosen one, Min-seok reveals his divine burden. The mayor smiles, acknowledging the creepy bond that connects these two monsters. The blindfolded monster questions if they truly share the same twisted nature. Min-seok sits calmly, accepting his role as a mere proxy in this game. His eyes ignite with a crimson glow as he confirms the terrifying truth. The mayor ponders the absurdity of this sudden and incredibly bold claim. With a chilling smile, the savior suddenly strikes with overwhelming and violent force. He pins the hero down, demanding proof of his supposed divine connection. The fake messiah looms over his prey, mocking the legend of the goddess. A demonic aura erupts as he exposes the cunning tongue of a liar. A sudden, confusing shock interrupts his victory as blood drips down his face. Standing in the void, he detects a heavy, revolting stench never smelled before. The fake messiah stalks toward a blinding light that shouldn't even exist. Within the radiance, a familiar presence begins to take a terrifying new shape. He demands to know the identity of the ghost standing before him now. A chilling smile spreads as the legend finally speaks his own name aloud. The memory of being pinned and mocked flashes through the hero's mind. The surrounding witnesses can only watch as the tension reaches a breaking point. Enraged by the defiance, the tyrant lunges forward to silence the pretender. He screams for proof of divine grace or the head of a demon. A sudden, violent shockwave tears through the room as the first strike lands. The true hero stands tall as a crimson. Demonic power finally awakens. The tyrant's veins bulge as he struggles against a strength he cannot comprehend. With a single movement, the legendary hero forces the false savior to the floor. A deafening explosion of power shatters the room, vibrating through the very foundation. Outside the chaos, the vice mayor sprints through the halls, consumed by pure panic. He demands answers from the guards stationed outside the mayor's silent, locked office. He screams for them to break the door down before their leader is killed, but the soldiers hesitate, claiming the mayor is busy with a man named Ryu. Confusion masks his fear as he wonders who this unknown intruder could possibly be. Inside, the hero's eyes glow with murderous intent as he delivers a brutal blow. The one-sided slaughter continues, as the villain is launched through the air like trash. The corrupt mayor crashes against the wall, his physical form shattered by pure strength. He struggles to his feet, blood staining his pristine white suit in jagged patterns. He acknowledges the hero's strength, comparing him to the legendary warrior Shin Ji-woo. Ryu remains cold and unimpressed, dismissing the mayor's flattery as mere empty talk. The mayor claims they are identical, bound by a destiny neither can truly escape. A silent question hangs in the air as Ryu struggles to understand the connection. Behind them, a colossal demonic presence awakens, looming over the battlefield in shadow. With a trembling hand, the mayor prepares to unleash a secret kept for centuries. A vision of the past reveals a tragic soul condemned to the cleansing flames. From that agonizing death, a divine golden entity rises to claim its ultimate vengeance. The mayor revels in a dark blessing that has stained his soul and skin. Blood drips from his fingers as he prepares to show his true, horrifying self. Suddenly, the vice-mayor bursts into the room, screaming in a blind panic. He stops dead, staring at the shattered office and his leader's ruined clothes. With a chilling smile, the mayor apologizes for the chaos behind him. The terrified subordinate frantically waves his hands, desperate to believe everything is fine. But the atmosphere shifts as a cold demand for an answer hangs heavy. Looming like a shadow, the monster asks why his orders were ignored. A sharp reminder follows that this sacred space was never meant for intruders. Paralyzed by primal fear, the man can only stutter excuses as death nears. Baek Do-hyun stands stunned, questioning the sudden shift in the air. The bandaged mayor demands to know the meaning behind those cryptic words. Battered and bleeding, Ryu Min-seok clarifies that they were never equals. A bloody smirk plays on the hero's lips as he prepares his move. The commander reacts in disbelief at the mention of gaining the enemy's favor. In a quiet moment, the warrior suggests kneeling if it secures their escape. Insulted by the suggestion, the leader bristles at the mention of submission. To survive Daejeon, they must navigate a city built on blood and lies. Pledging false loyalty seems the only way to bait the monster in charge. But behind the mask of compliance, a deadly deception is finally taking shape. The blindfolded monster looms over the fallen warrior, sensing the scent of a trap. He mocks the hero's obvious deception, refusing to fall for such a desperate lie. Rising from the blood, the regressor stares back with eyes of cold, crimson fire. He challenges the mayor, claiming that even false loyalty serves their interests now. Any attempt at betrayal would be suicide against a monster of such overwhelming power. The warrior pledges that his ally's safety is the only price he truly values. A dangerous smirk plays on his lips as he asks if the lie works. The tyrant ponders the weight of the hero's proposal, sensing a shift in gravity. While the vice-mayor trembles in fear, the monster feels a surge of genuine irritation. Suddenly, the blindfolded devil erupts into laughter, finding the warrior's audacity absolutely intoxicating. The blindfolded tyrant agrees to protect the warrior's allies under one deadly condition. Before the vice-mayor can even blink, a chilling spray of crimson fills the air. With a casual shrug, the monster declares the seat of power is now officially vacant. To earn his place, the bloodied hero must survive a test of absolute cruelty. A grim warning echoes that the enemy's methods are more brutal than any nightmare. The devil wears a blood-soaked smile as he offers the warrior a final choice. Suddenly, the glassy-eyed citizens begin a rhythmic, haunting chant for a cold-blooded murder. The disturbing whisper spreads through the crowd like a virus of pure, mindless hatred. Total hysteria erupts as thousands of voices scream for the hero's immediate and public death. Under a pale moon, an entire city gathers to witness the ultimate act of sacrifice. Bound and gagged, the so-called demon is paraded before a bloodthirsty mob. Amidst the chaos, a chillingly calm servant offers a glass of fine wine. The battle-hardened warrior refuses the drink, his mind heavy with dark premonitions. Behind him, a desperate voice breaks through the tension, demanding the truth. Damie screams for her father, sensing the horrific fate that awaits them both. Panic flares in her eyes as the silence of the soldiers confirms her fears. With a heavy heart, the commander prepares to issue a final, soul-crushing order. He commands his men to retreat with the girl, leaving the hero behind. As she is dragged away, the weight of his failure crushes his spirit. High above, the tyrant signals the start of a public execution for all. High above the city, the tyrant officially declares the start of the public execution. The man labeled as a demon awaits his death before a bloodthirsty crowd. Suddenly, the mayor's voice trembles as he shares news of a horrific tragedy. Tears stream down his face while he describes the brutal murder of his deputy. The horrified citizens erupt in fury, demanding immediate vengeance for the fallen leader. But a sadistic grin twists his features as he speaks of divine wisdom. He gazes over the arena, announcing a new candidate to take the deputy's place. The atmosphere turns heavy as the crowd waits for the reveal of their savior. With a manic gesture, he points toward the man who will deliver judgment. Emerging from the shadows, the legendary Ryu Min-seok finally steps into the light. The blindfolded tyrant prepares to unveil his most twisted game yet. A broken warrior kneels in the ruins, awaiting a sentence he cannot escape. The mayor announces a horrific ritual to burn the innocent alive tonight. He offers a blood-stained honor to the very man he intends to destroy. Forcing the mask upon him, he names the boy as the final executioner. He whispers of divine destiny while leading his victim toward an unthinkable sin. With a torch held high, the monster promises acceptance for a soul-crushing price. The brainwashed masses erupt in a terrifying frenzy of religious zeal. Ryu Min-seok watches in absolute horror as the weight of the tragedy hits. He screams in disbelief at the demand to commit cold-blooded murder tonight. Min-seok demands an immediate escape before the nightmare spirals further out of control, but a cold hand stops him, refusing to abandon the path of certain destruction. Fury erupts as the weight of their impossible situation finally shatters his composure. The memory of the blood-soaked tyrant looms over them like a permanent death sentence. Min-seok sinks into despair, realizing his choices led his allies into this trap. Dami watches in absolute terror as the lives of everyone hang by a thread. Forsaking his soul, the young executioner declares that humanity no longer matters to him. With a heavy heart and a burning torch, he prepares to ignite the end. A massive pillar of fire erupts, consuming the night in a hellish, blinding display. Screams of agony pierce the air as the horrific ritual claims its first victim. The bloodthirsty crowd erupts in joy as the supposed demon burns alive. A towering pillar of fire consumes everything, marking the end of an era. Screams of triumph fill the air while the inferno purges the city streets. Standing atop his high perch, the blindfolded tyrant oversees the brutal ritual. He reaches out to claim the broken warrior as his own personal tool. With a manic laugh, the mayor demands total obedience from his newest subordinate. Trapped by a dark collar, the hero's eyes reflect a soul now lost. A haunting smile forms as he surrenders his will to the madman. The tyrant introduces his new deputy to the masses as they roar in approval. Their chilling chants echo through the city, heralding a future of absolute despair. The city guards bow deeply to the man now holding absolute authority. With a single command, the soldiers retreat, leaving the cold deputy alone. He strides toward the inner sanctum to confront those waiting in the shadows. The bearded warrior and his allies stare at the high-ranking official in silence. With a slow motion, the man begins to remove his deceptive blonde mask. The disguise falls away, revealing the true face of the legendary commander. Shinji Wu stands revealed, his piercing gaze cutting through the quiet room. The revelation sends a wave of absolute shock through the gathered survivors. The veteran fighter stares in horror, convinced that the hero has lost his mind. He declares that he will abandon his humanity to save his daughter's life. The tyrannical mayor celebrates his twisted victory from high above the city. Behind his manic grin, a silent executioner prepares to change the game forever. Suddenly, a catastrophic explosion erupts, consuming everything in a sea of hellfire. From the heart of the inferno, a legendary silhouette emerges completely unscathed. The warrior stands amidst the ashes, his face hardened by 99 failed lifetimes. A primal rage ignites in his eyes as he prepares for the ultimate counterattack. Back at the reconstruction site, the mayor oversees his new empire's progress. He gleefully welcomes his newest pawn to the inner circle of power. The mysterious deputy mayor arrives, hiding a lethal secret behind a polite smile. The tyrant claims his prize, unaware he is playing with a ticking time bomb. The sadistic mayor revels in the memory of the previous night's carnage. He violently seizes his newest pawn by the jaw to demand absolute punctuality. The tyrant warns that he has no use for dogs who disobey their master. Forced to play along, the warrior masks his hatred with a hollow smile. They walk toward the grand stage as the countdown to the ceremony begins. Massive construction crews work tirelessly to build the mayor's monument of absolute power. With chilling indifference, he confirms that his previous victim was burned to ash. He mocks the fallen by mentioning the only gruesome trophy that survived the fire. A mangled, scorched limb serves as a horrific reminder of the mayor's cruelty. Staring at the wreckage, the hero realizes the true cost of his failed loops. He finally comes face to face with the man from the failed loops. Ryu Min-seok appears, his body a map of scars from 1,000 battles. A simple acknowledgement masks the heavy tension between these two weary warriors. He vividly remembers the agony of being broken and left to rot. Even in that darkness, the legendary hero was the only one standing. Every move they make now is part of a dangerous, calculated gamble. Staring at the blindfolded tyrant, he struggles to suppress his mounting rage. A sudden clarity strikes him regarding the true nature of this loop. He finally accepts that he cannot defeat the mayor with his strength alone. The only path to victory lies with the power of the Blue Hawk. A scarred warrior questions why he was chosen for such a blood-soaked task. As the new deputy mayor, He claims he no longer has reason to kill. He coldly reminds the hero that his survival was merely a matter of convenience. Without a path to salvation, he would have ended the hero's life instantly. Ryu Min-sok remains skeptical, sensing a darker motive behind the man's dismissal. He demands to know why the deputy is so intent on murdering the mayor. Despite the tyrant's cruelty, Ryu argues that the man actually kept the city safe. The deputy sneers, asking the hero if he truly believes he is any different. Enraged by the comparison, Ryu slams his fist down with world-shattering force. With blood dripping from his knuckles, he asks if the deputy knows the truth. Ryu stares intensely, questioning if the deputy has actually looked at the people. Beyond the cold skyscrapers of Daejeon, the streets remain hauntingly empty and silent. Every window hides the dark secret of a population living in absolute terror. Citizens are forced onto their knees, worshipping the very hand that feeds them. They bow before the golden wings of a savior who is actually their jailer. Their screams of praise are nothing more than a desperate plea for survival. Ryu argues that these people are just puppets trapped within a gilded cage. He catches his breath, his knuckles split and bleeding from the sheer frustration. Finally, he admits the tyrant's overwhelming power was the only thing keeping order. But behind the masks of his enforcers, a much darker reality is waiting. A monster stood atop a mountain of corpses, promising to restore the nation. The deputy mayor whispers that these dark events sound far too familiar. Ryu feels a strange sensation, as if the ghosts are finally catching up. He looks back haunted by a feeling he can no longer ignore. He remembers the days when they fought side by side to defend the city. While scouting the perimeter, his squad discovered a silent and rotting warehouse. The air inside turned cold, mirroring the pure terror in his eyes. They finally uncovered the sickening truth hidden behind the city's glorious walls. Deep within the darkness, a nightmare was feasting on those they abandoned. The savior they trusted was actually the beast, devouring their very souls. The shadow asks if he witnessed the horrific truth behind their perfect city. Terror erupts as the soldiers scream the name of their absolute betrayer. A blood-soaked nightmare begins as he tears through his own men like paper. Traumatic memories resurface while he tries to wipe the phantom blood away. Ryu desperately pleads for an alliance to stop the madness before it spreads. He claims that only one man possesses the power to restore the fallen city. But the scarred warrior coldly refuses to acknowledge the weight of that responsibility. Defying the mayor means certain death for the only person he still loves. He abandons the title of hero just to keep his daughter alive and safe. Suddenly he freezes as a familiar presence catches him completely off guard. Dami appears unexpectedly, clutching her father's supplies with a trembling, silent heart. She offers him basic comforts to wash away the day's lingering filth. Ryu panics, fearing his daughter overheard the dark secrets of his mission. A heavy weight lifts as she retreats to find safety in sleep. The silence is shattered when the deputy mayor corners him in the hallway. The cold warrior questions if Ryu truly trusts the monster leading their city. A dangerous realization flickers in Ryu's eyes as the truth begins surfacing. Haunting memories of his secret life as the legendary Alpha resurface now. A hidden transmission confirms the successful escape from the city's iron grip. He is asked if he noticed the chilling anomaly during the public rally. The tyrant's grip tightens as the weight of his sins begins to overflow. A monstrous power surges through his veins, hungry for the next public execution. Haunting visions of the innocent souls lost to this regime flood his mind. Ryu knows the time for silence is over if he wants to survive. He lunges with lethal speed, striking directly at the blindfolded monster's throat. Blood sprays as Ryu unleashes a fury born from 100 failed lifetimes. Suddenly, the scene shifts as the expedition team finally clears the city gates. The survivors struggle to process how easily they slipped past the iron blockade. A heavy tension fills the vehicle as they question if this is truly freedom. Watching the armed guards through the glass, Ryu senses a far deeper conspiracy. Even the city's elite guards tremble under the weight of a terrifying new reality. They follow orders from a blindfolded monster who rules through absolute blood-soaked fear. Far from the city, a desperate convoy races toward an uncertain and dangerous future. The survivors realize their only hope lies in a gamble with impossible odds. Every calculated move is designed for one purpose: keeping the young girl alive. Ryu watches over his daughter, knowing this might be their final moment together. He hides his true pain behind a smile, claiming everything is under control. But the weight of 100 failed lifetimes hangs heavy in the silent air. This legendary hero is prepared to sacrifice everything to break the cycle of death. Dami silently mourns the father, who always takes the hits to save her soul. Dami remembers her father as a man who always apologized to keep the peace. During her middle school years, a cruel bully pushed her past the breaking point. When the harassment turned physical, the gentleman she knew finally reached his limit. Suddenly, his eyes transformed into something cold and completely unrecognizable to her. That day, he unleashed a terrifying rage that no one could hope to restrain. Now, sitting beside him again, she recognizes that same deadly aura returning tonight. She stands in silence, watching the man she loves transform back into a monster. It is the exact same look he wore when he chose violence for her. Her hands tremble as she realizes the true cost of the war he is fighting. She desperately wonders if her father can survive this cycle and return home safely. Ryu drives Dami away, trying to lighten the heavy mood between them. He reaches out a massive hand to comfort his trembling daughter. With a confident grin, he promises to return from the coming slaughter. Dami finally finds the strength to nod, trusting her father one last time. He focuses on the road ahead, steadying his heart for the inevitable war. Suddenly, a chilling realization strikes him, shattering the brief moment of peace. Cold sweat begins to pour down his skin as the pressure intensifies. He stares at his trembling hand, vowing to never let his resolve waver. Even in the face of death, he knows he must keep his guard up. The tyrannical mayor walks away, unaware that his most trusted ally is watching. Suddenly, a lethal strike tears through the air, catching the blindfolded ruler off guard. The sheer force of the impact shatters the ground and sends blood flying everywhere. Despite the devastating blow, the monster in the white suit refuses to stay down. His severed head speaks while being held, questioning why his subordinate would betray him. Standing tall while clutching his own head, the mayor demands to know the reason. The deputy mayor lunges forward again, declaring he was never truly on his side. Another massive explosion of power connects as the betrayal turns into a total bloodbath. The dying tyrant just laughs, mocking the hero for becoming a filthy little demon. The blood-soaked tyrant mocks his betrayer, claiming his power is still absolute. With a sadistic grin, the monster insists that he can never be truly defeated. He prepares to retaliate, fueled by the arrogance of a ruler who fears nothing. But a blinding blue flash erupts as the deputy mayor delivers a devastating strike. The relentless assault continues, tearing through the air with unmatched speed and fury. The sheer force of the impact shatters the concrete, burying the tyrant in rubble. Reeling from the impact, the tyrant gasps as a lethal shadow closes the distance. He cannot believe the speed of the man he once thought was beneath him. His regeneration fails to keep up as he is launched into the dark abyss. Shinji-Woo mocks the tyrant, claiming his best effort barely moved a finger. The once feared mayor screams in agony as his immortal body begins to crumble. With a single devastating blow, the deputy mayor proves his power has evolved. He realizes that running is no longer an option if Dami is to survive. Burning with a lethal red aura, he vows to end this nightmare right now. A massive strike connects, sending the monster spiraling into the depths of despair. Suddenly, the hunter senses a shift in the air that stops him cold. He weaves through the chaos with speed that defies the laws of physics. The city's elite guards arrive, guns drawn against the man they once served. The elite guards are crushed instantly by a force they never saw coming. A blood-curdling scream echoes as the mayor's physical form begins to unravel. Amidst the wreckage, the deputy mayor prepares for his final, lethal move. He lunges forward with predatory speed, his hands already stained with blood. A catastrophic impact shatters the earth, leaving no room for escape. But standing before him is a nightmare that defies every law of nature. The tyrant mocks the attempt, his voice distorted by a growing, inhuman hunger. Emerging from the shadows, a monstrous entity takes the place of the man. With a single glowing eye, the true horror of his blessing finally awakens. Long ago, a charismatic leader defined his name through the laws of virtue. He preached a virtuous truth of pure whiteness to his devoted, kneeling congregation. With a twisted smile, he claimed he was something far greater than a god. He declared himself a man set apart, capable of any act imaginable. Looking down at his followers, he fully embraced the dark reality of his identity. With arms wide, he commanded the masses to follow and worship his absolute power. Baek Do-hyun promised salvation while hiding a soul consumed by madness and hunger. Now, that same man stands as a pale, muscular beast in a cold blue light. From the balcony, he watches the city scream as his monstrous children begin feeding. A thunderous impact shatters the silence as an old enemy screams his cursed name. Desperate believers hammer on the door, begging their false god for salvation from ruin. Terror turns to rage as they demand the man behind the glass finally face them. A heavy blade shatters the wood, revealing a leader trembling in the cold shadows. The mob freezes in shock, seeing the man they worshipped reduced to a coward. Instead of a miracle, they find him pathetically stuffing stolen cash into a bag. Betrayal stings worse than death as their eyes lock with his greedy, hollow gaze. Casting aside his flock, the tyrant sprints for the exit with his blood-soaked riches. The realization hits like a physical blow as they scream for his immediate capture. Violent hands drag him down, silencing his desperate screams of authority and fake titles. Money scatters like worthless leaves as the fallen man pathetically clings to his divinity. Agony rips through the air as the flames begin their merciless feast. Bound to the stake, the fallen mayor is reduced to a pathetic, screaming mess. The cultists roar that their goddess has finally reached her limit of patience. Before the gathered masses, the wicked leader faces the ultimate price for his sins. Every drop of blood and inch of flesh is promised to the cleansing fire. In the heat of his final moments, he desperately begs for a savior. His vision blurs with ash as the world turns into a hellish golden nightmare. Suddenly, a divine presence descends from the heavens to witness the brutal execution. With a chilling smile, the goddess looks down upon the chaos she has wrought. A blinding explosion of holy light shatters the night, leaving only total devastation behind. The terrified crowd watches as the sky itself begins to burn with divine wrath. Even the most loyal followers can only stare in absolute, paralyzing horror. From the center of the inferno, the tyrant claims his ultimate, unholy right. He emerges not as a man, but as a monster reborn through pure agony. The mayor declares himself the true agent of the goddess, fueled by slaughter. With a roar of bloodlust, he lunges at the man who dared betray him. The speed of his monstrous form makes any defense feel completely useless. Jiwoo realizes too late that he is facing a force beyond human comprehension. Each crushing blow shatters the air, leaving no room for a counterattack. Silence falls as the assassin's life is snuffed out in one brutal, final stroke. The monster towers over his prey, a nightmare born from divine madness. A single, earth-shattering blow turns the prideful assassin into a broken toy. Jiwoo is tossed like a rag doll, helpless against this overwhelming, inhuman strength. The tyrant stalks through the smoke, mocking the pathetic remains of the rebellion. He sneers at Ryu Minsok, calling his legendary power disappointing and weak. A twisted grin spreads across his face as he discovers a horrifying truth. Standing over the fallen, he claims to be the goddess' only true apostle. The heat of the conflict leaves nothing but a glowing, shattered shell behind. With a manic roar, he lunges to purge those who defile his blessing. The monster screams to the heavens, begging his goddess to witness the massacre. The monster vows to slaughter anyone tied to the hero, even his innocent daughter. He promises a torment so deep that death will feel like a mercy. With a blood-curdling roar, the tyrant leaps to deliver his final, twisted judgment. Below him, the deputy mayor lies broken, his body glowing with failing strength. But through the blood and despair, a single command echoes in the darkness. The beast looms over his prey, unaware of the trap closing around him. Suddenly, a blinding radiance erupts, swallowing the battlefield in a sea of white. In the shadows, a hidden warrior prepares to flip the script of this massacre. With a cold gaze, the legendary hero finally triggers his desperate, secret weapon. 6 massive spotlights ignite, exposing the monster and turning the tide of battle. The blinding glare strikes the monster with the force of a divine judgment. For the first time in his twisted life, the tyrant feels true, paralyzing fear. His massive frame hits the floor as the world turns into a white nightmare. Even with his monstrous strength, he cannot stand against the overwhelming radiance. Confusion clouds his mind as his perfect senses suddenly betray his every move. The secret of his shadow vision becomes a lethal curse under this artificial sun. Years of nerve damage and dark evolution have left his eyes fatally vulnerable. While his senses are sharper than any human, his recovery is agonizingly slow. This is the one thing a creature of the dark must never face. Blinded and broken, the beast lashes out at shadows that no longer exist. The monster staggers back as his ultimate senses turn into his greatest weakness. Intense light and noise deliver a direct, paralyzing shock to his overclocked brain. A nervous system evolved beyond human limits now becomes a cage of pure agony. The deputy mayor watches from the light as the intricate trap snaps shut. Every nerve in the tyrant's body goes wild, short-circuiting his monstrous physical power. Realization dawns behind those blood-red eyes as he understands he was completely outplayed. The hero had intentionally used raw strength to provoke the beast into transforming. He acted overwhelmed just to lure the mayor into this perfectly prepared zone. Every single move was calculated by the man who has seen it all. The monster screams the hero's name as the world fades into blinding white. The hero admits that the monster's raw speed and strength are truly superior. The celestial goddess watches with a sadistic grin as the tragic drama unfolds below. But the legendary warrior has one final secret to reveal to the dying tyrant. The cornered monster listens as the hero explains the true nature of power. A blinding divine light begins to gather around the hero's blood-stained knuckles. He remembers the face of the daughter he has failed 99 times before. He declares that a father's protective instinct is the strongest force in existence. Time begins to blur as the relentless assault continues for over 3 hours. Every ounce of the hero's remaining life force is funneled into one legendary strike. With eyes burning like twin suns, he prepares to end the tyrant's reign forever. Ryu delivers a final, bone-shattering barrage against the monstrous, fallen tyrant. The deputy mayor watches as the hero unleashes his relentless and brutal assault. Casting aside his bloodied weapons, the warrior stands over the mangled remains. With eyes burning red, he confirms the total elimination of his greatest enemy. Shin looks down at the carnage, unable to believe the tyrant has fallen. Even in this state, the monster's face is a horrific mask of agony. The warrior credits his success to the secret intel provided by his ally. However, a cold shadow of doubt begins to flicker across the soldier's face. He realizes that the monster's neural pathways are far from being completely severed. Suddenly, the nightmare erupts back to life with a scream of pure rage. Ryu proves the hierarchy of power by crushing the tyrant under his blood-stained hands. There is no trickery here, only the overwhelming strength of a man who surpassed limits. Beside his ally, the warrior stares down at the absolute carnage they have wrought. The mayor lies in a pool of his own filth, a broken heap of meat. But a divine heartbeat echoes through the room as the golden goddess watches with glee. Her twisted smile reveals that this massacre was exactly what she wanted to see. A terrifying command resonates as the mangled corpse begins to twitch with unnatural life. Pure agony erupts into a deafening scream that tears through the very fabric of reality. Shrapnel and gore fly everywhere while the hunters realize their prey is far from dead. Shin grits his teeth in terror, realizing the true nightmare is only just beginning. The mangled heap of flesh evolves into a towering, multi-limbed nightmare. They realize the mayor has ascended into a high-tier variant known as a Tardige. Shin freezes in disbelief as Ryu confirms the terrifying truth before them. This isn't just a transformation. It is the manifestation of a true creature. Ryas' eyes burn with the realization of his enemy's hidden, monstrous nature. The air turns blood red as the elite entity marks its territory for slaughter. Screaming for his ally to move, Ryu desperately pushes Shin out of harm's way. If this beast really is a Tardige, its hidden ability spells certain death. They dive for cover as the massive abomination lunges with world-ending force. Meanwhile, an oblivious crowd gathers in Daejeon for a grand, deceptive ceremony. Guards stand paralyzed as unsettling noises echo from behind the ceremony stage. They whisper in fear, noting the mayor is now 3 hours late. Tensions peak as they wonder if the tyrant has finally met his end. Suddenly, the sky-high expo tower shatters into a cloud of pulverized concrete. The crowd erupts in pure hysteria as the city's landmark completely vanishes. Debris rains down like meteors while the soldiers scramble for their lives. A nightmare takes form, revealing a colossal maw filled with rows of teeth. Panicked citizens scream for their leader, unaware he is the beast hunting them. Death looms over the fleeing masses as the abomination prepares to feast. But Ryu strikes back, engulfing the monster in a spectacular pillar of fire. Shinji-woo screams for the monster to face its inevitable judgment. He stands alone against a nightmare that defies every law of nature. Gravity becomes his only ally as he plunges through the crumbling debris. Landing amidst the chaos, he readies his weapon for a final stand. The hunter becomes the prey as he narrowly escapes those crushing jaws. Fear cold as ice grips his heart while the pressure finally peaks. He warns that their strongest steel is nothing but paper to this beast. Inside the secret armory, Ryu prepares for a final, desperate suicide mission. Outside, the skyscraper looms over a world that is about to burn. The abomination tears through the skyline, leaving only ruins in its wake. The city's nightmare screams as it hunts the lone rider on the asphalt. Massive limbs shatter the road, sending the motorcycle spinning into a metal graveyard. Thrown like a rag doll, the deputy mayor stares up at his inevitable end. Rows of serrated teeth drip with the blood of those who failed before. Despite the crushing pressure, a flicker of defiance remains in his battered eyes. He questions the suicidal plan of luring this godlike predator into a trap. Ryu reveals that while its skin is iron, its insides are soft and vulnerable. Standing atop the concrete peaks, the legendary hero watches the beast below. The roar of a chainsaw echoes as Ryu prepares his final, bloody gambit. Gravity becomes his weapon as he dives headfirst into the monster's waiting maw. Ryu dives headfirst into the abyss to destroy the monster from the inside. His motorized blade bites deep, shredding through layers of mutated, iron-like muscle. The creature's screams pierce the sky as its internal organs are turned to pulp. With one final surge of strength, the hero erupts through the beast's skull. The titan of flesh is silenced forever, carved apart by an unstoppable human will. Stunned by the carnage, the deputy mayor realizes the power scaling has shifted. Witnesses can only watch in silence as the city's greatest threat finally falls. Far from the battlefield, the rebellion gathers to witness the end of an era. Dami looks on with a heavy heart, praying for her father to finally return. A massive pillar of light signals the conclusion of a century-long struggle. The clock strikes midnight as the tyrant's flesh rains from the sky. Standing atop a mountain of gore, the hero confirms the monster is dead. Every tooth of the blood-soaked chainsaw tells a story of brutal vengeance. With Daejeon finally retaken, the century-long nightmare begins to fade. Panic erupts among the survivors as they realize their god has fallen. Disbelief turns to pure terror as the reality of the slaughter sinks in. They scream for answers amidst the ruins of a once unbreakable fortress. Desperate pleas for salvation fall on the deaf ears of a mangled corpse. Even in death, the creature wonders why these humans still cling to him. Ryu looms over the remains, amazed by the sheer persistence of pure evil. The monster's dying breath carries a curse of eternal life through fear. He believes his reign remains eternal, as long as the city still trembles. But Ryu stands victorious, mocking the tyrant who finally met his match. Realization strikes the dying beast as he stares into the face of death. High above, the screens display the horrifying truth of his past massacres. The citizens watch in absolute horror as their false god's mask shatters. Every recorded atrocity is now laid bare for the entire world to see. They witness a hero standing firm against the nightmare that once ruled them. Confusion turns to shock as they recognize a man who should be dead. Shinji-woo returns from the grave to finish what he started. Shin warns that the fall of the tyrant will ignite a fire of total chaos. He declares that a new savior must emerge to lead them through the dark. Ryu names him the victor, questioning if he will become the next monstrous ruler. The weight of the city's future flashes across the giant screens for all to see. A desperate cry erupts as the burden of leadership begins to take its toll. Fear and doubt manifest as he stares into the void of his own reflection. Memories of blood and madness haunt his mind, threatening to consume his very sanity. He steels his resolve, knowing there is no turning back from this path now. His voice thunders across the square, a raw declaration to the watching masses. Beneath a strange light, the citizens watch the dawn of a terrifying new world. Tears of relief and shock wash over the crowd as the nightmare finally ends. A single clenched fist signals the end of an era forged in blood. Standing amidst the carnage, Ryu declares that his fallen enemy will be forgotten forever. He crushes the head of the tyrant who exploited the will of the weak. Now, a new protector stands ready to prove which power is truly superior. Ryu issues a final, chilling command for the dead to watch from the abyss. As the monster screams his name in agony, the hero walks away without looking back. Months later, the scars of battle begin to heal under a clear, peaceful sky. With the old regime dead, the soldiers look toward their new, silent commander. Under his steady gaze, the city of Daejeon is finally reborn from the ashes. Soldiers scrub away the remnants of a fallen tyrant to cleanse the city. The hero stands with his daughter alongside the man chosen to lead. With a new protector in place, peace finally feels like a tangible reality. Elsewhere, a legendary colonel returns to his brigade after a long delay. His men salute from the ramparts, relieved to see their commander alive. The soldiers break down in tears, fearing they had been abandoned forever. He laughs off their worries, proving that his spirit remains completely unbroken. The mood shifts instantly as he demands to know the hero's current location. A chilling order is issued to prepare the entire brigade for evacuation. Overlooking the setting sun, the regressor finally breathes, knowing they succeeded. Seeing his daughter finally safe brings a momentary peace to the regressor's heart. For the first time in 99 loops, Dami smiles within a secure sanctuary. Yet beneath the relief, a dark realization begins to haunt his every waking thought. The world is still crawling with nightmares that could snatch her away again. He makes a silent vow to end this cycle of terror once and for all. No monster will ever be allowed to breathe the same air as his daughter. Standing above the city, he prepares to hunt every single zombie in the country. Meanwhile, at the massive Daecheong Dam, a different kind of storm is brewing. Workers struggle against the rising tide as the water reaches a dangerously high level. Tensions explode as they fight to prevent a catastrophic failure that could drown everything. The storm rages as survivors frantically scream for their comrades to find cover. Warnings echo through the downpour, but the danger is already closer than they realize. Minhan stands frozen, a twisted, terrifying smile breaking across his tear-streaked face. Pure terror paralyzes him as he stares into the abyss of the approaching nightmare. In an instant, the rain-slicked rooftop becomes a silent graveyard for the fallen. A colossal, glowing eye watches from the heavens, marking the end of their struggle. Desperate voices crackle over the radio, pleading for a response that never comes. Inside the Jaryong Command Center, the silence from the front lines is deafening. Communications have been severed for an hour, leaving the military in total darkness. The horrifying truth is revealed as every major city is swallowed by the undead. Panic erupts in the command center as reports of a massive horde arrive. Legions of the undead rain down upon Jiryong in a terrifying vertical assault. Desperate soldiers turn to their leader, begging for a way to survive the slaughter. The commander stands in heavy silence, weighing a choice that could end everything. Reaching for his clearance, he gives the unthinkable order to retreat underground. His subordinates recoil in horror at the mention of such a forbidden protocol. They scream that triggering this weapon will lead to the world's absolute destruction. With the nation already fallen, the commander believes a total reset is necessary. Radio operators frantically plead for a signal from the silence of the front lines. Just as hope vanishes, a mysterious response crackles through the static of despair. A frantic report confirms that a signal has finally breached the static of despair. The scanning systems lock onto a deployed unit's frequency amidst a sea of danger. Guok chooses to place his final hope in this impossible chance at survival. Within the world's most secure bunker, the military prepares for a grand counteroffensive. The commander roars that reclaiming just one city will ignite their ultimate revenge. But the heavy silence of the room is suddenly broken by a strange sensation. A single drop of liquid falls onto his hand, defying the bunker's perfect seal. Confused, the commander looks up to find the source of the impossible leak. His eyes widen in absolute terror as he realizes they were never truly safe. Above them, a monstrous growth has already infested the heart of their last sanctuary. The monstrous entity within the bunker watches its prey with a chilling, unblinking gaze. 1 week after the liberation, the heavy task of reconstruction begins in earnest. Colonel Cha snaps at the regressor, reminding him that moving thousands is no easy feat. Through the relentless rain, the military coordinates a massive exodus to secure their future. Old friends tease the commander, noting how his leadership role has changed his very soul. He laughs off the jab, claiming absolute authority over everyone except for one defiant soul. A confident grin reveals exactly who he means, a warrior who answers to no one. Deep in the training halls, Hyri pushes her physical limits until her muscles scream. Each grueling repetition is fueled by the desperate need to survive this dying world. For the legendary Blue Hawk, every move is calculated solely to protect his daughter. Ryu makes it clear that the brigade's fate is not his concern. Deep in the base, Hyri counts every agonizing second of her training. A fleeting memory of his daughter keeps the fire of rebellion alive. She pushes through the pain, her eyes fixed on an impossible goal. But even the strongest warriors have a breaking point they cannot cross. Colonel Cha reports that the defiant girl still refuses to trust them. He grins, knowing his soldiers are far too smart to be fooled. Voices over the radio confirm that the colonel's instincts were right. Only a week has passed since they reclaimed the ruins of Daejeon. Now the country's strongest unit prepares to face a threat they cannot stop. Daejeon is now the final hope for rebuilding a broken nation. Colonel Cha receives a transmission that changes everything they thought they knew. The signal crackles with a promise to finalize the necessary preparations. Deep within the storm, the heart of the armed forces begins to beat. Ryu questions if they are truly heading into the military's most secret base. With a cold gaze, the legendary hero confirms their dangerous new path. He remembers a past life where the city's defenses were pathetic and weak. Back then, only low-level monsters crawled through the blood-soaked streets. Simple soldiers could hold the line under the command of a single man. But the discovery of a classified document reveals a terrifying secret project. Beneath the ruins of the South lies the military's most forbidden underground sanctuary. Hidden within these depths are experimental assets designed to change the tide of war. With this overwhelming firepower, even the highest-ranking monsters will finally know true fear. Ryu knows the clock is ticking, and they cannot afford a single moment's delay. His cold gaze pierces through the storm as the weight of survival looms heavy. Every step forward through the freezing rain brings him closer to an inevitable confrontation. Two elite shadows emerge from the darkness, ready to serve their legendary commander once more. Second, Lieutenant Eom Young-hyun stands as an unbreakable wall of the Blue Hawk unit. Beside him, First Lieutenant Hantani remains a silent and deadly blade in the night. Ryu orders his trusted ally to choose the strongest warriors for the coming storm. These soldiers were imprisoned for defying a tyrant, yet they survived the unthinkable. Jiwoo knows their absolute loyalty makes them the ultimate weapon for this mission. Ryu stares into the freezing rain, recalling the treacherous path that lies ahead. He turns to his elite shadows, questioning if they are truly prepared for war. With a silent, resolute nod, the two warriors commit their lives to his cause. The signal is given to infiltrate the massive fortress looming through the storm. A violent bolt of lightning tears through the sky as the assault begins. They march forward to seize the very heart of the nation's remaining military power. Far across the flooded landscape, a mysterious signal begins to echo through the dark. Inside a desolate room, the sudden ringing of a phone breaks the haunting silence. A pale corpse slumps against the desk while a forgotten phone rings. Outside, the world drowns as the massive dam finally begins to burst. Rushing water swallows the landscape, erasing any hope of a clean escape. Suddenly, the storm fractures as a jagged bolt of lightning tears through. A lethal blue slash cleaves the dark, signaling the start of war. Heaven's wrath strikes the Jaryong headquarters, shattering the fortress from above. Deep in the classified underground, a different kind of horror is brewing. Undead soldiers with burning red eyes react to the sound of intruders. The screeching monsters charge, driven by a hunger that never truly dies. Yet they run blindly toward a trap designed for total tactical annihilation. The underground facility erupts into a symphony of fire and flying limbs. Through the thick haze, the elite hunters of the Blue Hawk unit emerge. Every shot is a masterpiece of precision, painting the walls with undead blood. Heavy tactical boots crush the remains of those who refuse to stay dead. Even without bullets, the monsters are broken by sheer, overwhelming physical force. A single flash of light signals the end for another mindless predator. They move as one, a seamless machine of death clearing the dark corridors. Hantani finally catches her breath as the immediate danger begins to fade. Iam and Tani marvel at the hidden horrors buried deep beneath the base. But the mission is far from over, and the real nightmare still waits. Ryu stands amidst a sea of blood, proving his strength is beyond human comprehension. His legend precedes him as the man who reclaimed a city from total ruin. Seeing the legendary hero in person, his sheer presence feels suffocatingly powerful. Yet, he offers a sudden, gentle smile that catches everyone completely off guard. The elite soldiers can only stare in confusion at this unexpected display of warmth. They suggest he could easily tear through the remaining horrors without any help. But Ryu turns back, his eyes glowing with a sharp, crimson intensity. He admits that even for him, the path ahead is far too dangerous alone. The mission leads them toward the restricted sector guarding the military weapons facility. Memories of a brutal ambush remind them that one mistake means a gruesome end. Deep within the northern sector, a sealed door hides a chilling, forgotten secret. The elite team freezes as they witness a sight that defies all reason. Multiple bodies lie scattered inside, their lives extinguished only a short time ago. These weren't monsters, but uninfected humans who perished in the absolute, crushing silence. Ryu bypasses the security, knowing these victims spent a year praying for a rescue. He calmly explains his knowledge of this classified facility to his stunned comrades. He draws his blood-stained axe, preparing for an inevitable ambush by starving creatures. This descent into the underground abyss is merely the beginning of their true nightmare. A lone soldier stands guard in the mist, dreading what hides in the shadows. Every breath feels heavy as the darkness threatens to swallow their very souls. The soldiers freeze in disbelief as they discover living souls in this death trap. They mock Ryu's grim prediction, convinced the area is finally clear of monsters. But Ryu remains silent, his instincts screaming that something is terribly wrong. The heavy atmosphere thickens as the hero senses a presence they cannot see. He remembers the brave soldiers who once stood tall before the world collapsed. Now, those same men are nothing more than hollow vessels for a parasitic nightmare. A distorted scream echoes from the darkness as a massive maw opens wide. A Titangent-class eater emerges from the shadows, dwarfing everything in its path. Panic erupts as the unit realizes they are being hunted from behind. Small, writhing horrors on the floor prove this isn't just another mindless beast. A massive maw lunges from the darkness, signaling the start of a bloody massacre. Desperate gunfire rings out as the soldiers realize they are completely outmatched. Fear paralyzes the unit as they stare into the eyes of a true nightmare. Lieutenant Iam begins to tremble as a sickening realization washes over his comrades. Pale, fleshy horrors suddenly erupt from within the safety of his military gear. The elite soldier is torn apart from the inside by a parasitic infection. Twisted growths consume his skull, turning a loyal ally into a mindless puppet. A cold, dead hand clamps down on the living, dragging them into hell. Ryu leaps into the chaos to rescue his men from the evolving slaughter. This is the Parasiter, a creature that devours hosts and claims their bodies. This parasitic nightmare reproduces with terrifying speed, devouring every living soul in its path. Ryu Min-sok fights through the carnage, wondering how this infection breached their final defenses. He realizes their only hope is to avoid the creature before it evolves further. If this horror escapes the underground, the world above will face a gruesome end. The fate of Daejeon hangs in the balance as the infection nears the surface. Meanwhile, a heavy rain blankets the city. Ryu sacrificed everything to protect and rebuild. At the military base, the atmosphere is suffocating as soldiers prepare for the worst. Practice targets are shredded in the rain while the unit sharpens their lethal skills. Even the smallest deviation in accuracy is a death sentence in the coming battle. Shinji-woo pushes the training forward, demanding perfection from Dami before the storm hits. Dami has traded her innocence for cold steel, and a soldier's resolve. She once begged the new leader for a chance to become stronger. Knowing she couldn't survive this cruel world as a normal schoolgirl, her father is the only reason she is still drawing breath today. She swore to her father that she would never be a burden again. Desperation fueled her plea for the most brutal training imaginable. 5 days of hellish intensity have transformed her into a true warrior. Even under the freezing rain, her resolve has never wavered for a second. Shin Ji-woo realizes that the legendary hero's blood flows through her veins. Suddenly, a frantic soldier brings news of a threat far worse than zombies. The frantic soldier screams the unthinkable. The massive Daecheong Dam has finally collapsed. Ji-woo stands frozen as he learns every single staff member was brutally slaughtered. But there is something even more terrifying hidden within the initial damage assessment. The surging floodwaters are defying nature, moving as if possessed by a malicious will. Panic rises as the soldier realizes the water is targeting a single, fatal location. A catastrophic wave of destruction is now barreling straight toward the Jiryong military headquarters. In the midst of chaos, Ji-woo remembers Rya's chilling request to end his life. The weight of that memory hits harder than any physical blow could ever manage. He stares at the legendary hero, unable to comprehend the madness behind that smile. As the world crumbles, he wonders why his savior is begging for his own death. Since his rebirth, Ryu has been haunted by a single, impossible question. He wonders if death is even possible for a man who has lived forever. Looking at his fallen enemy, he finally understands the secret to his own end. Meanwhile, Ji-woo screams into the rain, declaring an immediate, city-wide emergency alert. Ignoring the desperate pleas of his men, he prepares to ride out alone. Time and manpower are luxuries they no longer possess in this crumbling world. With a roar of his engine, he charges toward the looming disaster at Jiryong. Back on the balcony, Ryu explains that constant, rapid trauma prevents his recovery. A terrifying smile crosses his face as he reveals the surest way to die. As the facility floods, the ultimate method is revealed to be slow, cold asphyxiation. Ryu reveals the terrifying truth that his next death will be his final end. A grotesque nightmare of flesh and endless teeth emerges from the darkness to feed. Lieutenant Han unleashes a hail of lead as the two warriors charge into chaos. Ryu catches his comrade mid-air, praising her lethal precision amidst the frantic battle. He knows these parasites can tear through flesh but fail against hardened steel walls. Deep within the Jiryong base, his target lies at the end of a corridor. Memories of past loops guide his feet as they sprint toward the hidden sector. Finally, the heavy blast doors of the secret facility loom before them in blue. Ryu bellows for the entrance to Zone G1 as time rapidly runs out. The security terminal flashes to life as they force their way inside the bunker. Ryu screams the emergency override code as the terminal finally recognizes his presence. Blinding light floods the room as the ancient security protocols finally grant them access. He plunges into the dark abyss, descending deeper into the heart of the facility. A grotesque, mutated limb claws through the closing doors in a desperate final attack. The heavy blast doors slam shut, crushing the monster into a spray of gore. Lieutenant Han unleashes a relentless barrage of lead against the horrors in the shadows. She stands amidst a pile of severed limbs, gasping for air in the silence. Flickering monitors reveal a command center that shouldn't exist in this broken timeline. Isolated in the darkness, she realizes they have stumbled into an impossible nightmare. Her eyes widen in pure terror as the true nature of this bunker unfolds. A mountain of mutated flesh looms over the regressor who dared to enter. Riotous fury erupts, his face twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. Chaos reigns as the facility's horrors tear a helpless soldier limb from limb. Grotesque tentacles latch onto Ryu, threatening to crush the life from his body. Amidst the carnage, his glowing eyes widen at a discovery that changes everything. Meanwhile, a cold rain falls over the city, masking the scent of oncoming death. A lone vehicle drifts through the storm, carrying the only hope left for survival. Shin Ji-woo rushes through the shadows, his boots echoing against the cold steel. He confronts the madness, demanding to know why this nightmare is happening now. His heart shatters as he is asked to perform the ultimate, unthinkable execution. Shin stands frozen as a voice reveals they know his deepest, secret nature. Ryu approaches the leader, acknowledging the burden of the impossible choices ahead. Since the fall of the tyrant, something inside him has fundamentally shifted forever. The mayor listens intently as a terrifying question hangs in the sunset air. He fears the day his mind breaks and he becomes a mindless beast. Desperate, Ryu begs his friend to end his life if he loses control. His only wish is to remain a hero in his daughter's eyes forever. A dark corruption begins to pulse within his chest, threatening his very soul. He refuses to be remembered as the monster he fought to destroy. The nightmare manifests as he screams against a fate worse than death. The hero screams as a grotesque corruption consumes his very flesh. He refuses to let the darkness turn him into the very things he hunts. A colossal nightmare rises, dwarfing the terrified survivors trapped in its shadow. A jagged, blood-stained blade cuts through the silence of the impending slaughter. Darkness erupts in a storm of red, impaling enemies with absolute, ruthless precision. No matter how many times he falls, death is a luxury he cannot afford. He grips a writhing piece of the infection, claiming its power for his own. Ryu Min-seok finally awakens the forbidden parasitic power dormant within his veins. Standing amidst the carnage, the regressor prepares to finish this once and for all. The host's mutation peaks as a hellish shriek echoes through the facility. Ryu crushes the life out of a soldier who no longer feels human. A devastating eruption of red energy tears through the very fabric of the facility. The remaining infected scream in agony as their corrupted bodies begin to disintegrate. Harnessing the parasite, the regressor slams his newfound strength into the cold floor. Every strike sends shockwaves of blood and bone across the decimated battlefield. From the gore, a massive wall of screaming faces and eyes begins to manifest. This hellish transformation wriggles with a hunger that defies all natural laws. Ryu stares down the colossal nightmare, completely unfazed by its sheer, terrifying scale. With a single, brutal impact, he shatters the core of the ultimate mutation. The cycle of carnage ends as the regressor stands amidst the absolute silence. The regressor's body begins to twist as a forbidden power consumes his very soul. He lunges toward the colossal nightmare, a man-turned-monster to save his world. Deep within the bunker, a lone soldier stands frozen by a sudden, deafening impact. She grips her weapon, sweat dripping as the shadows ahead begin to breathe. A terrifying silhouette emerges from the darkness, radiating an aura of pure slaughter. The monster smiles with a human face, offering comfort while covered in demonic filth. He reveals the secret purpose of this tomb, built for humanity's final stand. Horror strikes her heart as she realizes his face mirrors the creatures they hunt. She asks the question she fears most, staring into a gaze no longer human. He admits the infection took hold, yet somehow, his iron will refuses to break. He smiles through the mutation, certain that only he can achieve the impossible. His partner stands frozen, her gaze filled with a mixture of awe and terror. He ignores the gore, his mind drifting toward a darkness he thought he escaped. This pain is unique, like being violently dragged back from the edge of oblivion. A gruesome vision of the past returns, showing him buried under a mountain of undead. He can still hear his own scream from the day his humanity nearly broke. The circumstances are different now, yet the crushing weight of despair remains the same. Everything he does is fueled by one singular purpose: keeping his daughter alive. She is no longer just a girl to save, but his entire reason for breathing. Shaking off the past, he prepares to face the new variables within the bunker. In his past life, the horrors hidden inside this bunker were absolute nightmares. He found the skeletal remains of soldiers who chose suicide over the unknown. Their hollow sockets still scream with the terror that consumed their very souls. Now, Ryu stands in that same darkness, haunted by the bunker's gruesome history. A discarded identification tag catches the light, sparking a moment of pure confusion. He realizes he has just discovered the legendary authorization key to the facility. Deep beneath the restricted Jaryongdae base lies a secret the entire world forgot. At the end of a narrow corridor stands the ominous and blood-red door. Known in classified documents as Pluto's Gate, it guards the ultimate forbidden zone. Only one person was ever authorized to enter this hellish, top-tier restricted area. Major General Guok Sungshul was once the man tasked with stopping the end. But the weight of the coming catastrophe was far too heavy to bear. He shattered the final authorization key before surrendering his soul to death. Yet Ryu stares in disbelief at the key lying perfectly intact before him. Holding the bloody tag, he questions how this impossible object even exists. The facility remains silent as Ryu prepares to face the secrets hidden within. Frost covers the steel walls as a haunting memory of the past remains. A lone helicopter battles against the massive, world-ending surge of water. Shin Ji-woo frantically screams into his radio for a response that never comes. The dam has collapsed, sending a lethal tide toward the last remaining survivors. The military base vanishes beneath a relentless, crushing tide of freezing water. Shin Ji-woo screams for a response that the roaring flood has already silenced. Deep inside the bunker, Ryu senses a presence that shouldn't be there. He scans the shadows, wondering if his battle-worn mind is finally playing tricks. Hantani drops to the floor, discovering something hidden beneath the heavy desk. Someone desperately carved a message into the tile with a jagged blade. A cryptic string of 13 digits stares back like a ghost from the past. Even after 99 lives, Ryu has never encountered this terrifying new variable. This jagged sequence holds a meaning that Ryu cannot yet begin to comprehend. With the bunker's secrets exhausted, they must decide where the next nightmare begins. Tani reels, as the veteran reveals a hidden layer to this nightmare. Ryu declares they must descend further into a hellish place called the lower level. Deep beneath the surface, a secret facility hides right under their very feet. This dark abyss holds the technology needed to rebuild their fallen nation. But Ryu knows the price of power is often paid in blood and madness. Horrific memories of soldiers being torn apart by mutations flash through his mind. He looks his lieutenant in the eye and asks for her ultimate commitment. The soldier stands her ground, fueled by a loyalty that transcends her own life. She vows to follow him into the jaws of death without a single regret. A cold, knowing smile creeps across Raya's face as their final descent begins. With a blood-chilling grin, Ryu prepares to breach the final, forbidden red door. His loyal lieutenant stands ready, her weapon gripped tight in the oppressive silence. Deep within the facility, something ancient and hungry begins to stir in the dark. A massive, mutated eye snaps open, signaling the return of a nightmare once defeated. Outside, a torrential storm batters the city as the world teeters on the brink. Lieutenant Park frantically monitors the radio, his face pale with news of impending disaster. Reports flood in confirming that the soldiers have carried out their final, desperate orders. He can only pray for safety as the weight of the coming catastrophe settles. He screams through the rain, warning that the floodwaters will soon swallow the city. With the dam failing, they have only 1 hour before total darkness consumes everything. Shinji-woo stands frozen as the weight of the coming storm finally settles. Lieutenant Park snaps to attention, sensing the desperation in his leader's eyes. Soldiers scramble to higher ground while cutting power to the drowning city. Massive military trucks wait in the rain for orders that may never come. Sergeant Kim screams for his team to move before the floodwaters arrive. Park stares into the abyss, realizing the true scale of their impending doom. Cold sweat drips as the terrifying reality of their situation sinks in. Ji-woo vows he will never abandon his men to the encroaching darkness. Their salvation depends on one man who has survived 100 hells. They have 30 minutes to find them before the entire world vanishes. Specialist Minhu radios in, promising a swift return amidst the rising chaos. Above the storm, the transport battles fierce winds to reach the forbidden zone. They descend into a forgotten corridor, where shadows of the past still linger. A single rusted iron door stands as the final barrier to the truth. The ancient security system waits for a code that hasn't been used in decades. This classified facility was scrubbed from every official record 33 years ago. Tani grips her weapon tightly, sensing the overwhelming pressure behind the seal. Cold sweat drips as she realizes the horror hidden within this silent tomb. Ryu leads the way, his mutated form a testament to the hell they face. Before them lies the ghost stock, a nightmare capable of erasing the world. Tani trembles as she realizes the true scale of the military's secret. Raya's eyes narrow at a hidden inscription left by a foreign power. This classified protocol was buried deep beneath the earth for decades. A fleeting memory of his daughter reminds Ryu of what is at stake. Official records lied to the world about the removal of these weapons. Nearly 1,000 nuclear warheads sit waiting in the absolute silence. Even a seasoned regressor like Ryu is shaken by this impossible discovery. The sheer volume of destruction before them is enough to end everything. One thing is certain as the weight of the truth sinks in. He clenches his bloodied fist, preparing to seize control of the apocalypse. Ryu radiates a terrifying pressure as he stares into the abyss of his power. He realizes this hidden strength could wipe out the entire zombie plague instantly. His sudden bloodlust is so intense it leaves his loyal lieutenant completely frozen. He quickly masks his darkness, claiming he was simply lost in thought. But internally, Ryu fears the monster growing inside is beginning to take control. Standing over the nuclear arsenal, he knows these weapons are more than just deterrents. One wrong move with this much power would literally incinerate the entire planet. Suddenly, he spots a mysterious red door hidden deep beneath the metal walkway. The ominous entrance suggests a secret even more dangerous than the warheads themselves. Ignoring the protocol to report back, Ryu decides to descend into the unknown. A chilling voice echoes through the dark, greeting them with a twisted smile. Out of the shadows steps a man who should be long dead. The commander stands before them, his expression unnervingly calm and welcoming. Ryu and Tani freeze in disbelief, recognizing the face of a fallen hero. Rage boils over as Ryu realizes something is fundamentally wrong with this reunion. The figure mocks them, feigning ignorance while blocking the only exit. A subtle twitch in his gaze reveals the hollow shell beneath the skin. Suddenly, the human mask splits apart to reveal a massive, pulsating red eye. The military uniform shreds as a familiar nightmare tears through the flesh. Baek Do-hyun has returned, transformed into a mountain of mutated, vengeful muscle. The creature sneers at his ignorance, as multiple faces twist in a grotesque mockery. A chorus of bone-chilling laughter erupts from the mountain of mutated flesh and bone. Its central crimson eye dilates, focusing on the prey standing before its massive frame. With a sudden burst of terrifying speed, the Titan lunges forward to crush him. Even with his superhuman reflexes, Ryu can barely track the monster's blurring movements. This is only the second time he has faced an entity of this magnitude. This specific horror never appeared in any of his previous 99 lives. Facing an unknown predator in such a confined space is a recipe for disaster. Tani suddenly grabs him, her eyes wide with the realization they cannot win. He screams for her to leap as the world collapses under the beast's weight. Tani screams her confirmation as the final desperate plan begins to unfold. She leaps into the abyss, leaving Ryu alone to face the nightmare ahead. Ryu unleashes his parasitic power, manifesting massive limbs of raw, mutated flesh. He clashes with the Titan, a brutal struggle between two unstoppable forces. Blood sprays as Ryu pushes his body beyond the limits of human endurance. The monster mocks his ignorance, looming over him like an inescapable shadow. It offers to reveal the secrets Ryu has hunted across 100 lifetimes. Stunned into silence, the hero realizes he has been a fool all along. The beast erupts in maniacal laughter, its many faces twisted in sadistic glee. It prepares to speak the truth that could shatter Raya's soul forever. Ryu stares at a horror that defies logic, a monster that somehow knows his name. The creature's face twists into a sickening grin, hiding a dark, ancient identity. Ryu demands to know if this nightmare has stalked them since the very beginning. The beast mocks his question, its laughter echoing through the cold, empty halls. It erupts in madness, screaming words that sound like a twisted, ancient curse. Ryu reels as the monster claims that it was he who followed the beast. Memories of the bunker resurface, back when the world first started to rot away. Every step Ryu took towards salvation was actually a path leading straight to hell. Behind the steel doors, a massive, unblinking eye watches his every move. The ultimate predator has been waiting for this exact moment for 100 lifetimes. The monster cackles, claiming every horrific tragedy was orchestrated by its own hand. Ryu stands frozen as the beast mocks his ignorance, calling him a pathetic fool. With a dozen screaming faces, the nightmare revels in the chaos it created. Suddenly, the creature lunges forward with strength that defies all human logic. It sneers at Ryu, disgusted by the defiant glint still lingering in his eyes. A massive, unholy eye narrows, reducing the legendary hero to a mere speck. The monster reveals its true identity, and the name sends Ryu into shock. A single, devastating blow sends the regressor crashing through the cold military facility. Ryu struggles to breathe, unable to believe his sworn enemy has finally returned. The self-proclaimed proxy of God looms over him, treating the world like a toy. The monster cackles, claiming the legendary hero is nothing more than a toy. It mocks Raya's existence, labeling him as defective trash meant to be broken. A deafening scream erupts from the mass of mutated flesh and screaming faces. The beast towers over the fallen warrior, revealing a twisted, obsessive connection. It spits venomous words, insisting that his own daughter actually despises him. The creature calls him a zombie, a failed experiment in this endless cycle. Ryu kneels in the darkness, struggling to process the monster's nonsensical ramblings. Suddenly, a sharp clarity pierces through the hero's despair and growing confusion. He finally recognizes the man behind the nightmare, the elusive Baek Do-hyun. But the ultimate truth is far worse. The enemy he hunts is himself. The world ended in blood, as the zombie outbreak consumed every living soul. Behind the carnage smiles the divine mastermind responsible for this unending nightmare. Ryu roars in defiance, refusing to believe this is the end of his journey. He realizes he was lured here like a defective product marked for disposal. Driven by pure rage, the warrior demands to know where the goddess is hiding. The mutated monster stands tall, its many faces twisted in a grotesque display. Baek Do-hyun erupts in maniacal laughter, mocking the hero for his foolish persistence. He sneers at Ryu's desperation, asking if killing him was worth this price. In the heart of the bunker, Ryu stands face to face with his greatest nightmare. The monster offers a final choice, revealing the nukes that will end it all. Ryu stands battered as the parasitic infection slowly claims his legendary body. The hero freezes in shock as a horrifying truth begins to surface. The monster grins while claiming it witnessed Raya's darkest and most hidden desires. It recalls the exact moment Ryu first laid eyes on this cursed facility. Beneath the hero's mask, a sinister smile had once betrayed his true nature. Their hearts beat in sync as the creature whispers directly into his soul. It mocks his hunger for power and his secret urge to unleash destruction. The vision of a world in flames reveals Raya's potential as a monster. Suddenly, his loyal lieutenant screams out, desperate to break the psychological trance. She unleashes a hail of explosives to tear the nightmare apart. Tani grit her teeth, her eyes burning with a desperate, lethal resolve. The red gate loomed as the massive mutation crushed everything in its path. Ryu stared into the abyss, his mind fixated on a singular, explosive objective. But the monster struck first, slamming the lieutenant into the cold, hard floor. Through the chaos, she spotted the one room that could end this nightmare. The explosive storage room held the only power capable of leveling this base. A hail of grenades filled the air, only to be snatched by mutated limbs. Ryu lunged forward, his fists colliding with the tyrant's grotesque, undulating flesh. He let out a primal roar as the parasite consumed his very soul. With one final, shattering blow, he struck the beast where it hurt the most. The monster's gaze pierces through his soul with a single, terrifying eye. Ryu summons every ounce of strength to lift the suffocating mass of flesh. With a guttural roar, he tears the mutated nightmare into bloody, shredded pieces. Rainfalls of gore paint the floor as the tyrant's physical form finally disintegrates. Collapsing onto his knees, the legendary hero is left broken amidst the carnage. Every breath is a struggle, as the parasite threatens to consume his remaining humanity. Even in death, the tyrant's mocking laughter echoes through his shattered mind. He desperately tries to ignore the psychological poison designed to break his resolve. But his own heart betrays him, pounding with a fear he cannot explain. Tani rushes to his side, screaming for the leader who is losing himself. Tani desperately tries to reach her broken leader as he slowly regains his senses. Ryu prepares a final request just as a violent shockwave tears through the floor. The facility begins to crumble, while a haunting voice begs the hero to stay. Mutated flesh upon the walls whispers a chilling invitation to stay and play longer. The remains of his enemy promise to reveal one last agonizing secret to him. Ominous shadows fill the corridor as the psychological trap begins to tighten its grip. A sudden eruption of blue energy signals the arrival of a deadly parting gift. The ghostly whispers paralyze the legendary warrior as the facility descends into pure madness. Ryu grits his teeth in silent agony, while Tani watches her commander lose himself. A massive tide of destruction rises as the tyrant demands one final, twisted game. Ryu realizes the facility isn't just leaking, it's a catastrophic structural failure. His red eyes widen as the crushing pressure of the deep sea rushes in. A massive wall of water explodes through the corridor, swallowing everything in its path. Ryu screams for his lieutenant to take one final breath before they are submerged. They fill their lungs with air just as the freezing darkness consumes the room. Tani drifts into the abyss until a desperate hand catches her in the current. Ryu uses his monstrous strength to pull them through the churning, violent flood. They have reached the classified depths, where a single mistake means certain death. The drowning facility transforms into a lethal vortex, dragging them toward the bottom. With their lungs burning, they claw toward a light that shouldn't be there. Ryu pushes through the crushing pressure, desperate to reach the surface before they drown. But the world above has vanished, replaced by a cold and endless watery grave. He tells himself to stop thinking and keep moving if they want to survive. Suddenly, a monstrous, fleshy limb erupts from the depths to snare his leg. A massive, crimson eye opens, signaling that the nightmare has finally caught up. Ryu realizes with horror that the beast he thought dead is still very much alive. The parasite on his neck pulses as the situation turns from desperate to suicidal. He lets out a silent roar of fury against the overwhelming weight of the abyss. Far above the chaos, a lone helicopter battles through the raging storm and rain. They are launched into the air, narrowly escaping the creature's grasp for one final chance. A soldier watches in disbelief as the impossible happens right before his eyes. Tani is hauled into the safety of the helicopter, barely clinging to life. Panic erupts as the pilot screams for news of the other missing survivors. Gasping for air, she collapses onto the metal floor, completely spent and broken. She frantically whispers that the vice mayor is still trapped beneath the surface. Meanwhile, deep beneath the waves, Ryu is cornered by a nightmare beyond comprehension. This ancient horror mocks his 100 lifetimes of failure and his useless hope. It warns him that every struggle is meaningless against the weight of destiny. To save what remains, he is commanded to submit to a higher, darker will. Only by becoming the perfect pawn can he ensure that Dami finally survives. A massive explosion of water erupts from the depths beneath the rescue helicopter. Tani watches in sheer disbelief as the surface of the ocean literally shatters. The aircraft struggles to stay airborne as a violent surge of water chases it. Drenched and exhausted, she realizes the situation has spiraled beyond their control. Behind them, a grotesque and bloody silhouette begins to take a terrifying shape. The pilot offers a chilling apology as he betrays the vice mayor's trust. Tani stares in horror, unable to comprehend the monstrous form emerging before her. A pale, inhuman hand slams down with enough force to crack the metal. Ryu rises from the wreckage, his body pulsing with a dark, unnatural power. The rescue mission ends in blood, leaving one dead and a hero transformed. The devastating floods that swallowed the base have vanished like a cruel hallucination. Daejeon remains paralyzed after a crushing 3-day blackout that left the city in silence. By November 5th, the massive dam finally resumes its normal, mechanical rhythm once more. 5 days later, a mysterious signal begins to pulse through the dark, cold depths. An elite squad descends into the shadows, prepared for whatever nightmare waits below. They return to the belly of the base where heavy artillery stands ready for war. Among the ranks, a familiar face masks a terrifying secret behind a cold, knowing smirk. Ryu stands transformed, his eyes burning with a crimson light that signals a coming storm. He leads the way forward, leaving his loyal lieutenant trailing in his heavy, suffocating wake. Tani watches him closely, her heart racing as she senses the hero is gone. Ryu hands the key to the red gate to his trusted lieutenant for safekeeping. Tani stammers in disbelief, shocked that her commander would entrust her with such power. He warns that these weapons must never become tools of mindless destruction or chaos. This secret must remain buried until the inevitable day the gate finally swings open. Looking out over the neon city, Ryu stands alone against the weight of destiny. Later, his daughter Dami asks if anyone else has noticed the change in him. Tani agrees that since the flood, his very state of mind has shifted dangerously. But Dami knows it is more than just a simple change of heart. She gazes into the distance, sensing a darkness growing within her father's soul. The man they once knew is gone, replaced by something far scarier and more powerful. A voice rings out as a massive red eye snaps open in the darkness. Beneath the flood, Ryu stands atop a creature while mocking its pathetic telepathy. He remembers the horror of his daughter being twisted into a mindless zombie. Ryu stares down a grinning demon, embracing the terrifying thing he is becoming. Blood spills into the water as he prepares to reveal his true intentions. The hero vows to hunt down the person responsible for this living nightmare. The giant eye trembles as Ryu promises to make the creator suffer endless pain. He strikes a lighter with his teeth, preparing to ignite the dark abyss. His parasitic eye glows red, ready to rip apart and devour his target. Deep in the ocean, the legendary hero prepares to consume his enemies whole. A massive surge of blue energy shatters the surrounding reality. Beneath the chaos, a cold determination settles on his scarred face. Ryu's parasitic eyes glow with a lethal, crimson bloodlust. In the dead of night, his allies finally uncover the missing piece. The secret numbers recovered from the bunker reveal a terrifying truth. Scrawled desperately with a knife, these coordinates point toward their destination. Ryu demands to know exactly where this path of vengeance leads. Dami and Tani watch in silence as the final pieces fall together. The target is confirmed to be the very heart of Seoul. Now, a bloody war for the future is about to begin.